Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me tonight is Austin, the Day Ghost. And I am breaking hiatus once again to talk a bit about the future of the DC universe. The DC, I almost did this in the title, the
Gotta
DC
think
in
about the
brackets
future.
EU. Because they don't want us to call it that anymore. But anyway, so James Gunn, as everybody knows at this point, has taken over DC Films, which has become now DC Studios, and is heading this up, which was crazy, kind of shocking news several weeks ago. And we've been doing a little bit of speculation here and there on the channel about what his big plans might be for movies moving forward. And tonight, Austin and I are going to deep dive, and we're going to give you kind of our wish list, things we really like to see under Gunn's tenure, things we think he's most likely to do, and we'd love to get your feedback as well. If you're watching live, thanks a bunch for being here. As always, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, and that guarantees that we'll answer your questions or suggestions on the program. We'll also try to look over and look at regular comments as much as we can as well, but we love feedback from you and make this as much of a conversation that you guys can help us drive as humanly possible. Austin made a big list of projects and elements of DC Comics that he thinks are likely, and how much of it is stuff that you want, Austin, and how much of it is stuff that you just kind of think will likely happen?
I tried to go 50-50 of here's some things that I don't really care about, but I could see him actually doing, and then there's certain things where I'm like, oh, like I would really like to see this, so I hope he does it. And so I tried to have like a mix of it.
Yeah, and because you told me that you were doing that, I didn't want to walk in completely unprepared, so I went ahead and made a short list myself. I guess mostly of things that I'm hoping Gunn will do, but based on his sensibilities as much as anything. And I think it is important to note, of course, that James Gunn will not be directing every film or a TV show or what have you in the new DC, DCEU, however you want to put it. And it's also important to note that it's hard not to think of it as new because there's somebody new in charge, and Zaslav keeps talking about his big 10-year plan, and they're kind of, in some ways, hitting the reset button and trying to start fresh as much as possible, but it's also not a full-on reset as far as we understand it. So we are still building on some things that we've had in the DCEU, which is something we really want to make sure and keep in mind in our conversation, Austin, because there's some stuff that if we were wiping the slate totally clean, which of course, as I've said 1,000 times, is what I want, if that were happening, it would be easier to speculate, I think, because you're having to kind of pivot and keep in mind things that have already appeared on screens. So, for instance, if Birds of Prey had never happened, one of the things that would wind up on my list is probably a Cassandra Cain movie or something like pretty heavily featuring her, because I think Gunn is likely to go to, and again, I'm sure people will pitch him stuff. I'm sure it won't be all, him making a list. Here are all the things I want, and then he just hires people to make them. But just thinking about things that he would be liable to greenlight or come up with on his own, I'm thinking he's likely to go mostly to late 80s, early 90s stuff.
That's what I was looking at, too. That seems to be his kind of period so far in what we've seen.
Yeah, and then possibly up into the late 90s, early 2000s when it comes to the Batman side of things, which is why, assuming we get very much Batman side of things from anybody but what's his face? Matt
Reeves.
Matt Reeves, yeah. So and that's a big thing we're gonna have to keep in mind tonight as well. Like, how involved is Batman going to be in the DC movie universe? Are we at some point going to see these things merge? It seems like there have been kind of conflicting reports about whether or not Gunn even has the Batman universe in his purview. At first, what we were reading was that that was totally separate and that he wasn't involved in that at all. And then lately, it seemed like I'm hearing more things like maybe he is going to be more involved in that. So That's all kind of up
Who
in the air.
knows? Yeah.
But Zaslav had that quote recently where he said, "We don't want to have four different versions of Batman at one time anymore." And when he said that, I went, "Okay, so does that mean you're going to have a DC universe with no Batman in it, or does that mean that they are going to ultimately end up having to merge them?"
Yeah. Okay. So on my list, I ignored like kind of all of that stuff that's just kind of already there.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go, like Superman 2 will be like a movie that we do, like stuff like that, or like The Flash 2 or Aquaman 3, or really touch on like Batman stuff. But I think because I knew we were going to get into it in a like broader sense, anyways. But with Batman, I feel like what they'll do is it'll either be Keaton and he'll be like the kind of mentor-y character, or they'll just recast and he'll just be a supporting player, but he won't get his own projects, is I think what the DCU Batman will be.
So this might seem like out of left field and not what most people will assume. Two predictions. First of all, The Flash will finally get released next year, but it will be ignored entirely after that. I think the Flash movie is once again going to be a relic from another time, and I think when it releases, it's going to feel like it was made 10 years ago, and it's finally getting put out. And I also think that it's entirely plausible. Maybe it somewhat depends on how well they do. It's also possible that this is the last time we see Momoa's Aquaman, that it's the last time we do anything with this version of Shazam. We could kind of like quietly morph this into something that feels more definitive as a universe based on DC Comics, and that it technically is in the same world, but we kind of quietly somehow evolve the characters into something more familiar and something more akin to what Gunn would think of as definitive DC universe. And my other prediction is so Flash won't happen or won't continue, and I don't think you'll see Keaton come back at all.
So with Momoa, I think Momoa is a guarantee stay just because Gunn's already used him. But everything else is kind of up in the air.
Do you think?
Yeah, because the Justice League show up at the end of Peacemaker, and the only actual actors they get are Miller and Momoa. The rest are just stand-ins.
Oh, and so you have me at a little bit of a disadvantage because I still haven't seen that show yet. When it came
Well, that
out,
was the scene that I told you they filmed on the Guardians set.
and I knew they filmed something, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I was not in the mood for more super dark superhero stuff right then, and so I haven't bothered with it yet. Now that Gunn is the guy in charge, I'm feeling kind of obliged to finally sit down and look at it. So I'll probably end up doing that in the not too distant future. But I'm working through Better Call Saul right now, so I'm probably gonna wait until I'm finished with that, and then that might be the next thing I look at. But
well, if it makes you feel better, that's not a super dark show. Like it's the type of show where Peacemaker and Vigilante can fight a talking gorilla. Like it's that kind of a show.
But I knew it was a spinoff of the Suicide Squad, which was just too raunchy for my taste.
Well, like raunchy, probably, yeah. But like, I don't think of the Suicide Squad as darker either.
Okay, well then we're quibbling over semantics at this point.
Yeah.
When I say dark, I just mean like
just like raunchy.
Yeah, like I just wasn't in the mood for that kind of like super adult superhero stuff. Like it's not my thing, and I can enjoy it occasionally, but I don't need everything to be that. And lately, too much of the good stuff has been that.
Mm-hmm.
So like I went and watched Invincible instead, and after that, I really didn't need more raunchy superhero stuff right then.
No, for sure.
So of course I'll do it eventually, but.
No, absolutely. But just with that, I think Momoa at the very least is like will stay on. Miller, who knows? Because who knows what's going on with Ezra Miller? I could see them either doing the what's the say Wally West Flash and just kind of jumping to that, or recasting Barry Allen. That could go either way.
Well, and the part of this that's so difficult for me is now that he's got the keys to the kingdom, how badly, and also, I guess there's the question of what Zaslav and the guys above him are expecting, and just how much free reign he's got. But how much does he really want to keep things like on track from what they already had? And like, if he had his druthers, would he just start over? Because like, you know he didn't have the job when he made Peacemaker.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
And
what's
so he's kind of
interesting,
stuck with what he's stuck with right then. If he's in charge and he had the chance to reset things, would he? But then it's complicated because the stuff he's already made is already set in that world, and he probably wants to hang on to that. And we know about his big Waller project.
Mhm. Well, and what's interesting too is something that he's talked about before, which is when he jumped onto Suicide Squad, like he was given the opportunity to do the Matt Reeves thing and just completely separate it, but chose instead to do the universe thing. Like he said he was given free reign to recast Harley if he wanted to. Like
Interesting. I didn't know
they
that.
they were like, yeah, like that's fine. You know, we have your full like confidence.
Well, and that does make sense because they had already had some success with Joker, in particular, with letting somebody just do their own thing and not be tied to that universe. And it
Mhm.
was looking, when he got that job, it was looking more and more like the direction they might be going was directors just make movies and we're not worried about a shared universe anymore.
Mhm.
And I was excited about going in that direction. So, somewhat ironically, Gunn takes over and he's giving me exactly the last thing I wanted. And like, I'm expecting the projects to be better, so hopefully eventually I get one over on the whole thing. But man, I wish we were just start from scratch and weren't stuck with all that baggage, which again I've talked about a lot. But
Well,
it just doesn't feel definitive. And
yeah, I mean, I
his
hate the DCU more than you do, and it's
yeah,
the only thing I have with it being Gunn is that Gunn's the only one that's made anything I like in this universe, and it's something that takes something that exists and kind of pivots it into something actually good.
yeah.
So I'm like, if anybody can do it, I like it's him. But like I agree, like I would
And that's
prefer starting over.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm confident it's going to be better, and eventually it will probably look like something more cohesive and will make more sense as an entity. But why? But why do it like that?
Yeah, no, well,
I'm not
and
excited about hanging on to Cavill as much as I wish he had. And I've talked about this on the Captain Logan show. Pardon me. As much as I don't feel like he ever really had, got his due as Superman, if you have to do a sequel with him and finally let him do what he really wants to do with the character, i.e., I don't know, feel like that character and not in a real, hammy throwaway, well, he's smiling now and saying truth and justice,
Mhm.
kind of way, can't you let the DCEU be its own little pocket now and start over and do something more definitive and just have multiple continuities at the same time? So it is kind of weird that a guy that I think is potentially a really great choice is going forward with a continuity that we've been stuck with for 9 years and that I've been just desperate to get away from, and didn't have to,
Yeah.
apparently.
Well, and I was fully on the grounds of like start over with Superman completely, like get a
Yeah.
new actor. That was what I wanted. Uh, who knows what'll happen with Cavill? Because you could maybe make a good movie with him. There's certain things that we're just kind of stuck with, like, oh, his Lex sucks. Like all like that stuff's kind of trite. Like, do you move forward with that? Do you try to pivot that into something a little bit better?
Or is he
Do you
gonna
ignore
do
it?
or is he going to do some kind of a crisis where he hangs on, cherry picks and hangs on to the things that he likes and wants to deal with? And like, if that happens, we'll know right away what things Gunn thinks works and what things Snyder did Gunn really hates. Like,
Mhm.
we'll know it immediately. When he does that just to get rid of Eisenberg, we'll be like, yep, he didn't like that Lex, thought that was a bad idea. If he recast Deathstroke, we're gonna be like, yep, he didn't care for that choice either.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see how some of that works. Because even just now, one of my favorite things, just like behind the scenes about the Suicide Squad, is the opening like title theme that he picked for that movie is the theme he wrote for the Dawn of the Dead remake in the script, and Snyder like dropped it and went with a different song. So I think that's just
Really?
kind of inherently funny.
No, it is. It's like his first foray into that universe, and with Snyder gone, is immediately a kind of kick Snyder in the teeth thing. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's not actually intentional, but there is just like a funny thing to that where
It
you
makes
go,
you
that's,
wonder though, and
yeah.
like I don't know what their relationship is. I assume those guys get along just fine, but
Yeah, I assume they probably get along fine. I've never heard them talk about each other, like outside of, when they worked on that.
it would be hard to believe that Gunn would consider Snyder a very good storyteller just because
Mhm.
you look at the way they make movies and it's polar opposite. I mean,
No, absolutely, absolutely. Even just the way they adapt material, like just beyond uh, actual storytelling, just the way they see comic books.
yeah, I mean, it would be like comparing him to Taika Waititi. Like they make movies entirely differently,
Mhm. Absolutely.
but have had to
Well,
play in similar sandboxes. Which is the only reason I bring him up because I've compared them
well,
before,
everybody compares them, and
where
they
it's like
not
here's
comparable.
yeah, well, because with Ragnarok, the strategy clearly was, well, the Guardians sold because it was a comedy, so let's make Thor into that. And they got a guy who does not meticulously like plan his films and write very much dialogue at all, versus the way Gunn does comedy. And I see Snyder as kind of the Watiti going the other direction, where like I mean he does obviously plan things out and write things. Don't get me wrong, but just in that they look at storytelling very differently, and like neither Watiti or Snyder is exactly a big picture guy. They're much more about what it feels like in the moment, and
Mhm.
Snyder in particular likes to tell stories in a scene and isn't as interested in even though I guess he thought way ahead, but more just about big crazy things he wanted to see happen. But a
Well,
lot more
Snyder's more
about
about images. Like he's like,
yeah,
is this an image that like I want to show? And it's not necessarily always in service of a story. And a lot of it's like,
yeah.
oh, here's a panel, like a big famous panel from like Dark Knight Returns. Like imagine if we had this in the movie, but it doesn't really understand its place in it. Um, so like it causes an issue through that. Well,
Which
I think Gunn kind of takes in like moments and ideas and changes them into what he's doing, but
yeah,
it gets the point of what was happening.
and as you say, in service of a larger story, trying to actually create a cohesive narrative. Which and I'm getting off the beaten path here, but I guess the only point I'm making really now in comparing them is to say, Snyder was however you feel about the way he makes movies, because I think it, and I at least going far enough back, like Snyder even quite a bit more than you do. I think Austin. I think he's an okay adapter as long as he's not writing the story or doing an original story or having too much say in what happens in the plot. If you just hand him a script and let him put it on screen, like I like what his images look like. Like I don't even think he necessarily has to thematically understand anything, because his style is so interesting that he can just put it on screen and it's okay. That's not the guy that should be like the architect of a shared universe. You see what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
where it breaks
no,
down.
absolutely, yeah,
So you let him
absolutely.
take Watchmen off the page, and it works okay, in my opinion. If he was,
Well, I think that's still his best movie. I
I'll
have a lot of issues with it, but it's his best movie.
I'll go this far. If he if he adapted Dark Knight Returns, it might have been okay. If he
Yeah.
was just adapting it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's stuff in Watchmen he doesn't understand, and it brings it down like compared to the book. But it's still overall like a pretty good movie, I think, because it still is mostly that scene for scene, and especially if you don't know the book, like it works, I think, really well.
Yeah, and it's at least visually arresting, which is what he's good at.
No, absolutely.
Let me get to some super chats, and then we'll start looking at our respective lists of things. I'm excited to see what Austin has written down because it sounds like he probably has a lot more than me. TY499 super chat. Biggest thing I want is a bat family, maybe older bats with Nightwing, Oracle, and Robin 3. To start with, Tim Drake can be our POV everyman. Thanks a lot for the super chat. The Batman side of things, the Gotham side of things, is a huge question mark with this, assuming that the Batman is not set in the same universe. And, like, Austin, you said you were kind of avoiding too much Batman stuff when you were putting things together. The problem is, it's such a big part
I
of the
just mean
DC
like
universe.
waiting, like just like Batman as a whole. Like I
Right.
wasn't gonna put on my list like, oh, like he'll make like a Batman movie. There's Bat Family stuff. I'll just say in my list.
So here's what's awkward.
Absolutely.
Here's what's awkward to me. I do not see Gunn putting together a DC universe that completely avoids everything in the Batman side of things. I don't
No,
even think it's possible. Like when you look at Marvel, it is entirely plausible and sometimes even a good idea to just completely take the X-Men out and put it in its own universe. I do not think you can do that with Batman. Uh,
yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, the
When I think
DC
about
in DC
Batman,
Comics stands for Detective Comics. Like, taking Batman out of it, kind of impossible.
yeah, no, when I said that about Batman, I just mean in terms of like solo things. Like I think Batman will be a big part of
No,
this
I'm
forward.
well aware. But what I'm saying is, it's so awkward, right? That, like, if Reeves' the Batman universe is separate and totally its own thing, I I kind of don't want too much Batman family stuff in the DCU, DCU, whatever we're calling it.
Because you don't want it to like one thing gets taken off the table for the other because like they want to use something somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't like too much Batman without Batman. Like, I'm not saying that they necessarily have to do like standalone Batman projects in on one side of the universe, if or of their, I don't know, their company, their movies, if they have the separate Batman universe. But it is annoying to me because we've had a good decade or more now of a lot of Batman projects that don't really include Batman. That you'd have a universe that has, say, like Tim Drake, and we do stuff with him, and Barbara Gordon, and we do stuff with her, and Batman's just talked about. We never see him.
Yeah.
We don't even have an actor cast anymore. Like, that's awkward, and I really hope we're not doing that. But I don't know how you can get around it unless they just occasionally get Affleck to come back in the suit for 5 minutes. Like, if we're stuck with the same continuity, loose continuity that we keep retconning and changing and stuff, then it's that version. So, like, do you recast it? Do you just talk about him, and we're supposed to just imagine it's still Batfleck that we're talking about? Like, what do you do?
My main thing is I think they'll recast at this point, especially with that recent news with Affleck and his production company with Damon, and then who knows what'll happen with Keaton.
Well, and so earlier I said I had a second prediction, and then I mentioned Keaton, but that was actually part of the same initial prediction. My actual second prediction was, and shut me down if you know something I don't, or if there's something I'm not thinking about, Austin.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, they will combine universes. I really do. Like, forget everything we know right now. I don't think that when Zaslav says we don't want 4 versions of Batman, that suggests that eventually, like, they might ignore it for a little while.
Hey, you can have
Eventually,
two though.
they're gonna be, yeah, but I think he means let's not have a bunch of different versions. And I'm not obsessed with synergy or anything, don't get me wrong, but, and this is not wishful thinking necessarily, because I think that also could be weird and problematic. Like, you'd need a crisis to even begin to make that work, because that Batman is not the Batman we've had, and he's younger, and he's only been doing this for a couple of years, and like, it's the exact opposite, which is so ironic because that project was originally a prequel for the Batman, for the Affleck version of Batman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think there's probably been talks about it. I think Reeves will go, no, like I will walk if like I get forced into this because he wanted out of it in the first place.
Okay, and that's fair, and I know he's talked about not being that interested in a shared universe and combining his stuff with other things. I think they can smooth it over with him if that becomes a priority, in saying you don't have to connect your stuff to what we're doing, but it's all technically in the same universe.
I also don't think Pattinson would like really want to like jump in and do like Justice League stuff and appear in like a bunch of like just like random DC things.
Yeah.
I could be wrong because he also seems like a Batman fan, so who knows?
But you know what it makes me wish? As much as I like the Batman, and like this is suddenly a completely different project, and Matt Reeves wouldn't have been involved in all of that, but just all things being equal, I wish that was all TV in the first place, because that would solve every problem. If especially because that's the thing, is that their Batman universe is a shared universe. They're doing HBO Max projects on top of their movie projects with different characters, and so then there's the question of will they do some of the Bat Family stuff that people want over there? And do you see what I'm saying? But like, if it was all on, and I'm not actually saying I wish the Batman was an HBO Max movie, but I'm just saying, all things being equal, if somehow it could have all been in another medium and wasn't in movies in the first place, it would solve all of our problems.
Well, see, I think for me, it's like it understands my like personal divide on Batman, where Batman in other DC things is a very different character than solo Batman. So like, it's nice to me to have a version of Batman that is just solo and is just doing his own thing and just fighting, random crime, like, all that stuff. And then you have another one that's like fighting aliens and stuff with the Justice League.
No, that's fair. But then they have to recast him, because I don't mind having two variations. Don't get me wrong. Again, earlier when I said that wasn't wishful thinking and me going, I can only have one Batman on the big screen. I don't actually mean that, but I don't want it to be this invisible Affleck Batman that we never see, and that's kind of my fear, is that that's what they'll do.
Yeah. See, I feel like it'll either be Keaton or they'll recast.
It won't be Keaton.
I mean, who knows? Like, it's so up in the air.
There's no way they keep going with that.
If it's not Keaton, I think it'll be recast. I don't think it'll be Affleck, and I don't think he'll just disappear.
I could be mistaken. I'm wrong about a lot of things.
You are, sir.
But I don't think after the fiasco that's happened with Flash, Keaton will want to do anything else. Like,
well, then that could be.
Unless they've got him locked under contract, that's the first thing, is I don't think he'll be that interested in being in a bunch of stuff. Secondly, he's looking great. He's in a lot of stuff, don't get me wrong, but the man is 70 years old, and
that's the biggest issue with Keaton.
We have got to stop hedging our bets and hinging everything on like older guys that aren't gonna necessarily be able to do it for 20, 30 years. And I don't mean to sound ageist or whatever, but you don't start there. If he'd already, if they got him at 55 or 60 and he'd made a bunch of movies, like...
Well, people already said Affleck was too old. Like, maybe not him specifically, but like their take on Batman was too old in the first place.
Well, and I actually really dug that idea, if only they had, made some smarter choices in the first place and could
Yeah.
and could get him in more projects earlier. But it's kind of the Sam Jackson thing. I like or what I mean is it's fine if it is something like Sam Jackson, where he's getting a lot older now, but he's been doing it for over a decade. And when he was initially cast, nobody was like, "Oh wow, that's really old." Like, and you knew he was going to be in a bunch of movies, and he was kind of going to be the glue that held all that together. 55, 60 is okay. 70, 82 years old when you're Patrick Stewart Picard is really kind of pushing it.
Or if you're Indiana Jones.
But at least that wasn't like, let's make a shared universe.
No,
He's gonna make one more movie.
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay, more super chats. Josh, $10 super chat. Thanks, buddy. I hope we get a DC universe that feels like the immediate post-crisis DC universe, and I think that's the period that he's mostly gonna be looking at. That John Byrne period. That period had a neat, cohesive feel, while also retaining the classic characteristics of the DC universe. I completely agree. And not only do I agree with you, Josh, that that's what they ought to do, I think that's precisely what he's looking at.
Mm-hmm. No, just in the stuff that he's made so far, I think that's a lot of what he's looking at. No, absolutely.
Do you want to start going down your list, or should I knock out some more of these super chats? Because we actually have 4 or 5 right now.
It's up to you. I can knock out something on my list, or you can read another super chat.
Okay, let me go ahead and blow through these so that folks aren't waiting too long. John Ty, $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. What I want is a Daily Planet movie with the writing level from an Aaron Sorkin script. Yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, I think that
Gunn,
might
give
be...
us a Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen TV show.
I was gonna say that sounds more like a TV show or a miniseries to me.
That's what I was thinking when he said it. I don't know if that would be a movie, but I can see that being like a fun show.
Do a really good movie with that. It's like, I hesitate saying not commercial enough, because Gunn is likely to greenlight really off the beaten path, odd sounding, counterintuitive, nobody in a million years is going to want that, you would think, kinds of things after he made Guardians, after he made one of his main characters in the Suicide Squad, Polka Dot Man. He's, a vigilante in Peacemaker. He's gonna come up with and greenlight weird things.
No, he's like Star-Lord. He's like, get ready, you're about to see some weird stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that they're more likely to be really, I hesitate saying colorful, because, I mean, he'll probably greenlight some pretty gritty stuff, too, but it's going to be real comic booky. Most of it,
yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, I agree.
But I also don't think that it's going to necessarily have a house style like Marvel does. And that's kind of my hope, is that the universe feels cohesive in that they keep really good track of their continuity, but tonally we can get very dissonant from movie to movie, because that's what it feels like in good DC comics.
No, absolutely. And with Daily Planet specifically, like, I feel like that would be a really good, maybe not fully episodic like TV show, but like in that kind of vein where you can like have different stories that they jump on and stuff. And it's
sort of
really
like
fun.
a Gotham Central thing. I mean, that would be the reason to do that.
Exactly.
So you're thinking more anthology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could do episodic, or you could do like loose stories throughout the whole season.
Robert Wild, $2 super chat. I just want a good Green Lantern movie. So this is a place where I'm repeating myself again, but a few weeks ago, when we got the initial news that Gunn got the job, the first thing I said was, if I were Gunn, I would reboot entirely, starting with Green Lantern. Because if it works, it's amazing, right? Because in 2011, that Green Lantern movie was supposed to be the start of a shared universe. You remember they made a big deal out of like a Wayne satellite or something? I can't remember. Or I guess Man of Steel had a Wayne satellite. What am I thinking of? There's some kind of there's a few references to random DC things in that, and they talked about it like because Justice League Mortal didn't happen and couldn't jumpstart their shared universe. Now Green Lantern's going to do it, and then that didn't work out, and then they tried to do it with Man of Steel 2 years later. It would be so cool if, and again, we're not getting this now because we're not straight up rebooting, but it would have been so cool to prove that their instincts were right with Green Lantern if only they'd made a better movie. That's a great place. I don't know, because you and I haven't talked about this. I don't know if you agree with me on this. I think Green Lantern is a perfect place to start your DC universe because it's cosmic, but it also is rooted in Earth at the same time, and so it's pretty easy to introduce your universe and peel the curtain back at the same time. But also just under Gunn's purview, it would make a lot of sense because it's space and cosmic, and but also a very, very different thing from Guardians.
So this was one of the things I didn't put on my list because I knew it was going to come up anyways, because I knew that you thought Green Lantern should be the first thing. But my thing is Green Lantern, Green Arrow. I don't see any world where that's not something that Gunn's looking at as adapting.
Why do you think that? Specifically that he's looking at that material, because I think that would be awesome. I don't know that I agree that of course definitely absolutely that happens.
Well, just because it's that era, and B, I just feel like that's kind of one of the big Green Lantern things, and we've never gotten it. And
yeah.
Green Arrow had a big show, and they teased Green Lantern at the end of it and completely dropped that.
They teased Green Lantern all through that show. Do you know how many times Ferris Air is
Green Lantern at the end?
I know, but do you know how many times Ferris Air is referenced in that show?
Yeah.
There's two things. Sorry, I'm running off myself again, but there's two things, maybe more, but that I can think of off the top of my head, that the Arrowverse, and particularly that show, constantly referenced and you assumed was foreshadowing, that despite the fact that they had a whole shared universe and they did a multiverse and they did a Batwoman show and had like Batman from another universe even show up, you never saw Green Lantern anywhere. And I don't know if they had some sort of a weird embargo thing or something where they weren't allowed to use that, but you also never saw Blue Beetle. And that was Ted Kord, constantly referenced in the first couple of seasons.
Well, with Green Lantern, there was that weird, WB, we can never acknowledge that Green Lantern exists again. And then we finally went, okay, let's do a Green Lantern show. And we gave it to the writer of the movie.
Wait, did that happen?
Yeah, the HBO Max, or the HBO show.
Is that still happening?
Guggenheim. It's that guy who wrote the first movie.
I didn't realize that that's who was writing it, but is that still happening?
So there was talk recently that it had been kind of morphed into a Jon Stewart thing as opposed to an anthology, like a bunch of Lantern show. So who knows if that'll just be kind of quietly taken away or if they'll continue with that.
Okay, because I really think that Green Lantern, even if they're not rebooting entirely, would be just a great way to, again, peel the curtain back and get us into space. And
absolutely,
they need to have that. Now, it's also possible, because we're talking movies, it's also important to remember that Gunn has said that Gunn is in charge of the TV side also, and the animation side, and he said that it's all in the same universe. But he's not talking about the Batman, so there's that whole question.
Well, and one thing he did say too is that because somebody said oh, you're making animated projects in this too. Does that mean there's nothing that we can get outside of this? And he did say that they will greenlight DC things that are not a part of this universe.
Right, but but they're also not going to be above having animated projects that are in that continuity, which...
He said they're not above having games in that continuity, which I think is possibly really cool. Who knows how that'll go?
Maybe, you know me, I'm always weird about having things canonical in different media. Like,
I
I
agree,
don't
but
love
the
that,
first
but
thing both of us said when we walked out of the Batman is, "I wish I could play it," and I
yeah.
would definitely be down if I got like the Suicide Squad game over the game Rocksteady's making.
Well, that's true. No, that's
Like
totally fair.
it depends what they do, obviously.
But I
They
guess
could either way.
but I guess my point in bringing that part of it up is if Green Lantern could still be a TV show and still be part of all of this, like
Mhm.
they could morph it into something connected to what Gunn's working on, and
Absolutely.
it still end up being an HBO Max thing. So I had
Green
forgotten about the
Lantern, Green
whole.
Arrow could be a show over a movie as
Oh
well.
yeah, and that could be really cool, by the way.
Mhm.
So a couple things about all of that, real quick. Just since you brought up the Jon Stewart thing, because you told me about that, and I'd
Yeah.
forgotten about it. I'm conflicted because I want a Green Lantern core thing really, really badly. That's what
Mhm.
the 2011 movie should have been, and I think we live in a very different world if that had happened. Especially, I mean, it would have to be good, but if it was mostly all in space and was a team instead of just a singular character thing. Now, don't get me wrong, we need more good singular character things, but Green Lantern, for my money, is always more interesting as a team thing than a singular character thing.
Well, because they're cops, like essentially space cops, you can have
Yeah,
that kind of like team thing where it's like you have like a squad,
but
like it works as a team thing more than say like some other solo characters.
yeah, but I'm conflicted because Jon Stewart's my favorite Green Lantern. So like, if they're gonna do, if they're gonna do one, that'd be the one. But
Mhm. Absolutely. And since it's Gunn, there's no way we don't get the cat Red Lantern.
well, that's the thing, because it's gone. I think there's and I almost put this on my list. I think there's every possibility of just a straight up Red Lantern's movie, and if that happens, I'll have a heart attack and die. I'll be so freaking excited about that. You
Yeah, you'll
don't
get the Red
even know.
Lantern show.
Yeah, and then they just start. Can you imagine the world where Red Lanterns is huge, but nobody cares about Green Lantern, and then we just start spinning off like Bleeze gets her own show, and
Yeah, exactly. Peacemaker was able to have a CGI eagle. They can have a CGI cat in a Red Lantern show.
that's like constantly barfing up blood.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly.
I
That's
want it.
something you would do because it's funny.
I
Yeah.
want it so bad. TY49 Super Chat. Thanks so much for the support tonight, man. My worry is that because Reeves has Batman, the DCU will be like the CW shows. You'll have Batman, but not really. I'm not interested in a DCU without Batman. I don't disagree. I made
Mhm.
essentially the same point earlier. Um, and obviously, if the stuff is great, then we'll live with it. But God, I'm sick of Batman without Batman. Like,
Well, I think, because for me personally, like I like a Batman without the DC universe, and I like the DC universe with Batman. So like, I really hope I get to have both my cake and eat it too with that. And
yeah,
I think it is. I think it is likely they'll fight to have a Batman in their DC universe.
you know what would be really cool now that you say that?
Mhm.
Give us a. Okay, am I crazy for suggesting this?
You're crazy already, but go ahead, suggest it.
So we've already got your very dark, broody, conflicted Batman with the Reeves version, and it's the closest thing you and I have ever gotten to our favorite iteration of that character, right? The like early late '90s comic Batman. You've already got that in that in its own universe, right? Could we get a Batman finally that I don't need him to be like, smiling and jokey and acting like Adam West and stuff, but could we get
The
like
blue and gray
a Neil
Batman?
Adams Batman that's like, really separated the way you're suggesting it? Justice League Batman versus street level Batman. Like, could we have the Batman that gasps shock and awe I can actually kind of see coming out in the daytime? Like, is it possible to even make it look good? in live action, and I'm not laughing at it. Like,
Well, that's the thing I've always wanted to see, the blue suit done in live action, is just to see if you can do it. I mean, that is like, if I close my eyes and think Batman, that's the image I see, is that like the blue and gray suit. And like I would like to see somebody attempt it. And I didn't have that thought until you just said it, but I I'd love to see them try.
and if they did that, then the place to introduce it is probably something like Justice League International.
Mhm. Which is on my list, I'll say, since you
Is
brought
it?
it up. Yeah.
I'm sorry. We will get to your list in a
No,
minute.
no, no. It's okay. Like, if stuff comes up, like, natural, I'll just say, like, yeah, like that is on my list.
TY also connected to this. I'll just read this real quick because we've already kind of been all over it.
Yeah.
The Bat family needs an active Batman to work. I agree, and with the exception of like solo, like, let me say this real quick, of solo characters like. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the Harley Quinn animated show, but like there's lots of other. Of course, he shows up in that. But there's lots of things where you'll have like a singular character that that we tell stories about in the same world where Batman is, and we don't really conveniently deal with Batman that much. With the exception of those kinds of things, whenever we like write Batman out because he should be in Gotham but he's not, it never works. Nobody ever likes that. It's never popular. It didn't work with the Birds of Prey TV show. It didn't work with Batwoman. And yes, these are both WB/CW things.
It didn't work with Gotham Knights either.
It didn't work with Gotham Knights. It didn't really work with Gotham with Bruce Wayne there.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Which isn't exactly writing Batman out, but and the producers of that show knew it. All anybody wanted was a Batman show, so they went, "We'll give you absolutely everything but Batman, everything, including freaking Azrael."
Okay, but the Azrael part is the best part of the show, where he gets blown up by Penguin and Solomon Grundy.
Josh, $5 super chat. I kind of hope that we have Reeves doing his Batman. I would like to see Sam Raimi make his Batman movie he has wanted to make since the 90s for the DCEU.
That would be interesting. You know, 'cause I said that I didn't think that Batman would get solo projects in the DCU. I mean, I guess nothing's really off the table. Like,
Yeah.
if they can do a Joker movie and have Joker in the DCU and Joker in the Reeves universe, what's to say that we can't have a solo Batman movie, and you just make it completely different so that it doesn't confuse anybody?
So I was just distracted because that's 3 Jokers.
Mhm. Well, that's what we're setting up.
It's setting up 3 Jokers.
Absolutely.
I did make a short list of events and stories I think are likely to get adapted. That was not one of them.
That's on my list.
No, it's not. It'd be
I have
amazing.
Joker cubed.
They bring in. That's where they finally get Joaquin Phoenix's Joker to like interact with other universes. Is they just do 3 Jokers.
What they'll do is that all 3 Jokers will walk in like in an after credit scene of Justice League 2, and then we'll never hear about it for like 10 years, and then finally they'll make an out of continuity 3 Jokers movie. That's what'll happen.
Is that a serious prediction?
You decide.
Oh, okay. Hey, while we're there, here's a question for you. I'm not going to make this prediction because I honestly don't know. But do you think that Gunn having real honest-to-God comic book sensibilities, like actually reads comics and likes them and knows some continuity stuff, didn't just go to deep pulls with the Suicide Squad or with Guardians of the Galaxy the way that the CW did, where they would basically just flip through an encyclopedia and grab random stuff, and then fanboys would freak out and go, "Wow, what a deep pull!" And you're like, they never read that. They just went to the Z's and grabbed the character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that James Gunn is liable to pull in veteran comic writing talent?
That would be interesting. I'm not entirely sure.
Like, could we see Greg Rucka write a Batman-related movie,
Well, and since
for
Greg Ruck is
example?
one of the writers on Cape Crusader, like I could see him maybe
And maybe
specifically.
that's a bad example because I forgot that he was actually on a TV project. But like, is
Well,
it
and that's like
possible that
separate, so
we?
like maybe.
Yeah, when he's doing, for example, one of the things on my list that I'm assuming gets made, and there's been rumors about it anyway, is Secret Six. Does he get Simone? Like, does he just straight up
Yeah.
get Gail Simone to write a Secret Six movie? I think these things are possible.
Mhm.
I just don't know. Or like, does he actually call up Ostrander? Like, are these
Well, and
things
Ostrander's
possible?
in the Suicide Squad, so like maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. Um, he
Lu-
gets like a really fun cameo in that.
Louise Simonson for a Superman project.
Mhm.
For example,
Well,
along with Jurgens.
what I want him to do is to like do another fandom and be like, guys, we're bringing back the Snyderverse, and then bring out Scott Snyder and say that he's consulting,
That would be amazing.
just to see people
You
riot,
can't say
and
bring
'cause
it
I want to watch the world
back.
burn.
That would be disingenuous. It wouldn't even make sense to say it like that.
They're bringing back a Snyder.
Yeah, but to say the Snyderverse, like nobody has ever called Scott Snyder's Batman the Snyderverse.
No, but you're gonna call it the Snyderverse now because he's Snyder.
Don't you want that now though? Don't you want Scott Snyder to do like an omnibus or like a recut of some of his Batman or Dark Knight's Metal or something and call it the Snyder Cut?
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Now I really want that. I would buy that on principle. Senior Sticks, $5 super chat. With no trailer or teaser, is Flash a grift?
The Flash has a trailer.
Yeah, it does have it. Yeah, it has a teaser.
Yeah, I guess it's just a teaser. But,
Second, I don't know. Sorry, I'm not up on the lingo. What does he mean by grift?
Like it doesn't really exist. Like they're just. I'm trying to think of like another word.
No,
to,
that
like,
movie is shot
substitute,
and
like-
made, and it just hasn't seen the light of day yet because of all the controversy with stuff Ezra Miller's done. But more and more, it's looking like we'll definitely get it next year.
Mhm. No, absolutely.
I don't think there's just based on merchandise alone. There's no way that doesn't come out now. Especially the way Warner's has suddenly seemed to change their tune talking about Miller. You know what I mean? Like,
One, I'm interested too because Gunn said he had a really good time working with Miller on Peacemaker for his cameo. So I wonder like if that'll affect it or if Gunn will be like, "Whoa, this guy's crazy."
Yeah.
After the everything, it's hard to say.
well, and like I don't want to get into this too much, but then there's the question of like how much is it going to divide people just because of how like tarnished his reputation is now, because I've heard from people saying like if Ezra Miller keeps showing up in movies, they won't go see them because of awful things he's allegedly done.
Mhm. Well, and that's something that we should mention too. Like that, look, we'd have those questions whether or not they change leadership. Like,
Yes.
just who knows what's happening with the Flash? Like,
And-
it's so just
and I
its
still say
own can of worms.
regardless of how well that movie does, it can make $1 billion, and I'm telling you, it will be like it's been in a drawer for 10 years. I mean, it's really sort of almost been in a drawer for like 4 or 5 years. But I mean, it's maybe not quite that long, but I've heard people say it's starting to look a little bit like New Mutants, and yeah.
Well, we're probably close to like the 10-year anniversary of its original release date
Well, yeah, I mean,
on its first director.
the rumors that the Flash movie was supposed to be based on Flashpoint go all the way back to like shortly after Justice League came out,
Well, and the Flash,
if memory
was-
they
they had their template before that movie came out, and Flash was on it. And I want to say it was like a 2019 release.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong about that. I don't remember offhand.
Well, are you talking about that original list that also had like a Cyborg movie and Green Lantern was
So
supposed
that
to be like the last in the 10 years, I think?
Yeah, but the Flash has been in development hell since then. Like, it's been the same
Yeah.
project. They just keep losing directors.
But I'm saying that, like, I don't think going quite that far back, they were talking about like a Flashpoint universe reset thing, but we've known that since at least 17, I think.
Yeah. No, it's been pretty
Maybe 18,
long ago.
but it's long enough. I could be completely off base, but that's what I remember.
Well,
See,
then the other thing that we should mention with Flash 2 while we're there is that it is rumored that they got that director to do a second Justice League movie. Who knows if that'll be true, but
wow.
That's like the talk of the town right now.
And then there's so much. I mean, let's not get too far into that because who knows? But
Yeah,
there's so much speculation
exactly.
you could do with that too. Like, if I mean, so many ifs, right? If there's a second Justice League movie, and that's one of the earlier things they do, do you use that to solidify the universe they have already, or is that how we sort of soft reboot it even more than we have already, right? Like, is that where you recast Batman? Do you do some sort of crazy crisis-esque thing that makes Batman turn into a different actor? Like what do you do exactly?
Well,
but you still have the same Wonder Woman. You still have, like, I guess I'm probably wrong in what I said toward the beginning. This might be the last we see of Momoa's Aquaman, because I honestly didn't realize that he showed up in Peacemaker, and yet, like I said, I don't know if Gunn makes that decision if he's in charge of everything.
Well, yeah, I know one.
But then when you say that he had the option to not even be in this universe in the first place, then maybe he does still do that.
Well, and with Peacemaker, one of the things with it was that he just wrote in like the Justice League show up, and WB were like, whoa, now, okay, hold on, Batman can't be there, and Cyborg can't be there because we don't know what's happening yet.
Yeah.
And then the only actors that could get in were Miller and Momoa. The rest had to just be like stand-ins with like darkness over them.
They couldn't even get Godot?
No.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I know she's like kind of a bigger actor now and only does movies, but like,
but it could have been a scheduling thing.
What was she
Who
in the
knows?
middle of right then? I wonder. Let me read the rest of Senior Styx' super chat. Second, will Batman become Spawn and be depressed and not proactive, or Thanos sitting in a chair waiting?
The second one.
The more we're talking about it,
at the Bat computer.
the more we're talking about it, I hope he becomes late 70s, early 80s Batman, and he is wearing a gray and blue costume, and he's got, you know, a little bit more of a sense of humor. But like, I like the idea of a Batman that plays everything totally straight, but looks a little ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think even in a Gunn project, Batman could have that kind of Nebula thing where he doesn't crack jokes, but like the fact that he's so serious is like the funny thing about it.
Yeah, good call.
Where you can have somebody like say something to Batman, and he just he does the ellipses response from Telltale, and then they go like, "Okay."
You know? No one will remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
You could, in a less over the top way, you could kind of pattern at least the comedy mileage that you get out of that off of Overkill from Amazon Tick.
Oh yeah, no, and that would be it too.
It'd be precisely that kind of thing. Senior
no,
Styx,
I think that would work. No, I think that would work if we do like the kind of 70s Batman.
Senior Styx put another $2 super chat. How is Green Lantern supposed to work under Waller? I don't really know what he means by that.
I saw people earlier saying that Waller's in that first movie. Is it related to that, or is it?
Oh, maybe so. Yeah, she is there.
I don't know, because I've never seen Green Lantern, so.
Well, I almost said you should. Like, you shouldn't, but you should, just for the sake of the history of it.
No, I should
because it's weird.
Watch that. It'll make me sad because it's Martin Campbell, and he did like 2 of the best Bond movies.
I'm pretty sure, as far as the current iteration goes, Viola Davis, I'm pretty sure we'll only see her the one more time. Don't you figure? Like, if
Uh,
we're doing that Waller on trial thing, I keep thinking that's his way to finally stop making her the reason everything happens.
I don't. I think she could stick around because she's also has her own show coming out. Um,
What?
they announced this a while ago. They're doing a Waller show that Gunn's producing. Like he's not writing it, but
I missed that.
yeah, I want to say it was like right after Peacemaker came out or started. They announced that they were doing a Waller show, which I could see
That's
either
interesting.
setting up the trial thing that everybody's talking about, or
Yeah.
maybe you could do it there. I don't know.
I'll be surprised if that's not a prequel thing.
Oh, yeah, it could be. Um,
I wouldn't think there'd be anything to do with her that isn't here's how she became a crazy nutcase.
I'm just glad to have another project where she doesn't just show up on a screen.
Yeah, I mean, I want to reserve judgment. My first reaction to that is, who cares?
I think it could be really interesting just because I like Suicide Squad stuff, but it depends what they do with it.
Yeah.
That could go either way. I will say on my list, because I had two separate lists really, a projects list and a characters we could use in supporting roles list.
Yeah, yeah.
And initially I put Checkmate under projects, and then I switched it to supporting roles because I went, if we're doing a Waller show, that could be the Checkmate show.
That's true. Yeah.
Um,
And I think it's inevitable that that shows up.
yeah, no, I think so too at this point. So I think that could just be what that is, the Waller TV show.
Andrew Seif, 699 Canadian, who is a female DC character that you would like to see that hasn't been introduced in the DCU yet? An easier question for me is, what characters have we seen that I want to ignore and pretend like we haven't and put on my list as characters that I want to show up, i.e. the entirety of the Birds of Prey?
So I'll throw off.
My big one is Barbara Gordon.
Yeah,
And she was
certainly.
supposed to have a movie, and as everyone knows, it got canceled. What's nice about that getting canceled is you can do anything you want with her now, and it means that Oracle is not off the table. And I could see under Gunn's tenure getting to that. Now, it would be weird to just do Oracle and not actually have her as Batgirl first, but I'm not against it, depending on how you do it. So
I'm also fine with Gunn doing what he's kind of already done, which is everything's already established. Like you don't need to do origins. Like Polka Dot Man already exists.
No, I agree with
point.
that. But when you have a character like Barbara Gordon, which is a real kind of unusual case, she has got two very different sections of her career and feels like almost two different characters. It would be kind of weird to do Oracle before you've had an established Barbara Gordon who got to be Batgirl in the first place. Like, that's a place where it's not about origin, it's about letting a character evolve. Like, what's cool about Oracle is that you knew her as Batgirl, right? Like,
no, and I mean you could do like obviously like flashback and
but
stuff,
but then the Birds of Prey TV show did her without seeing Barbara Gordon for Batgirl first, and I adored that version of her. So
it could also be interesting if the Batman does Batgirl and DCU does Oracle.
That would be great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oracle's like part of the Ostrander Suicide Squad story, so I wouldn't be shocked if she was on his list.
What's one for you?
One of my ones is Zatanna, and I think that's like pretty possible.
I think that's nearly inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably see
absolutely.
that.
Well, and there was talks that she's getting a like a solo project. It's just who knows if that's still happening or if that got Zaslaved.
He's a verb now. But if it did get Zaslaved, you can be sure it's because he knows quality. Back Studios 49 Super Chat. I think DCU handles Batman without Bruce. Keaton comes back once more, either to die and Grayson takes the mantle, or he's too old and mentors Terry. I don't think that's how they'll handle that. But I do think one thing on my list was Batman Beyond, and that is such an easy thing to do completely separate from everything else
Mhm.
that it doesn't need to be in the same universe, or it can be really ambiguous as to whether or not it is. But I think Bag, if they do that, it won't be the way they're getting around using Bruce Wayne in the DCEU.
Yeah, so I asked people in the Discord if they had any suggestions to go on my list, and Beg did put those two, so I did put them on. But I feel like, especially after all the talk was Batman is getting replaced by Batgirl, Superman's getting replaced by Supergirl, and
Yeah,
Zaslav came in and said, "No, why can't we just have Superman?" I feel like that will also apply to Batman.
yeah.
Um, maybe that'll be different because we also have the Batman, but I don't know. It's hard for me to say right now that characters are going to start being replaced like that.
At the risk of repeating myself too much, I can kind of see why Bag's saying that.
Mhm.
And again, you have that thing
Absolutely.
where Zaslav said we don't want too many Batmans, but my fear is still he'll be there, he'll just never be there.
Mhm.
That's my worry. So like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think
it'll be
they'll
that Birds of
I don't
Prey
think they'll
thing.
in continuity write him out because like I said, that's never people hate that. Like it doesn't go well when you do that. I don't think they'll find a way to write him out. I think he'll just be in the background and they'll either recast but rarely use that actor or they won't recast and he'll just exist but you won't see him and then the excuse will be well you got the Matt Reeves Batman and so our Batman is around but you don't
He'll
ever
just be
actually see him.
Superman in Shazam. He'll just walk around without a head, but he'll be like a main character.
TY999 super chat. Thanks for all the support tonight, guys. We appreciate you. It would
Mhm.
be interesting to see a Neil Adams Batman become darker over time. I like
Yeah, that'd
that.
be interesting.
Start lighter, pardon me. Then adapt stories like Nightwing's origin, Killing Joke, Death in the Family, Nightfall, etc., 70s to 90s. And that brings up that's a terrific suggestion. And that brings up a big question I wanted to ask you, Austin, which is
Mhm.
how much compared to what we've done so far with the DCEU do you think under Gunn's tenure we're directly adapting stories?
Um, just judging by what we've had so far, like I think it's probably pretty likely that he's going to look at specific stories to adapt,
Do
as
you think
opposed
it'll
to
be
doing.
more like what MCU has often done, where it'll be real loose adaptations, or we'll take like two or three things and blend them together? Or do you think you could see like, a straight up adaptation like Red Sun or something, where we just do that story?
Um, yeah, I could see it going either way because the Suicide Squad itself, there's obviously like different things that he's looking at that kind of play into it as well. But just story wise, like it's almost an adaptation of just the first two issues of Ostrander, where they go to Jotunheim to destroy this kind of project that's happening there. And then, like I said, there's different things that he's taking from as well. But story wise, that's like the big thing.
I kind of hope you see a bit of both.
Hmm. Absolutely,
Where
and
we
it
can take
depends
a
on the
major.
project too.
Yeah, because that's a thing that I have really appreciated about, especially the first couple of phases of MCU, where we could take something like Civil War and um, it's that initial idea, but we like change it to match the stories we've told already that lead to that, and then we take the opportunity to improve on a story that wasn't that great but was a really good idea.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of room for that kind of stuff.
Well, and the Batman's got that with Hush, Long Halloween, and Court of the Owls, where it's like taking elements from those three stories specifically and kind of crafting a better story out of them.
Well, and to be fair, like Dark Knight kind of did that too. Like there's a history with Batman of kind of blending 3, 4
Mhm.
stories, but Civil War was actually like that
Very
initial
specific.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Batman was taking a lot of elements of different things, but very few plot points came directly out of something, except for some of what's done with Falcone and Catwoman being his daughter and all that stuff.
Mhm. No, absolutely.
Uh, but like, I guess I brought up Civil War just to say I hope we do it with some of the bigger stories, with some of the event things. One thing on my list is Kingdom Come. I think you'll see a direct adaptation of that story called
Mhm.
that, and I think it'll happen fairly early.
Yeah, I put on my list an adaptation of DC's Legends, The Big
That's
Dark
also on my
Side.
that's also on my
Oh,
list.
that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, well, especially because that's also the start of Suicide Squad. So he's obviously read that, and I
He's looking
think
at that period real hard.
that,
Legends was one of the first big events that wasn't a crisis, and
and I can see that
it's
being the big dark side thing that we do.
yeah, and it's got a lot of just real provocative covers and things. Like I can see that really appealing to him. When I was a kid, there's a there's a cover that's got that like creepy nerdy guy with the glasses with like Justice League characters behind him with their heads on fire.
Oh, that's
That was
awesome.
one of the first comics I ever bought. I love that cover.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
Robert
I've never
Wild.
actually read Legends. I know stuff about it. I know Doolittle, who's left super chats. He's told me he wants to do it as a request, so maybe in the
I
future.
was gonna say let's review it, but if at some point, but if somebody wants to request it, I would be all for that. That would give us an excuse to do it, Robert. Because otherwise, we'll just put it on our list and hope it comes up.
Yeah,
Robert
no, when
Wild,
he said that, I was like, gives me an excuse to read it. So
yeah, $2 super chat. Gunn would do Zebra Batman or Zurinar Batman. That is a terrific point. That under Gunn, who likes to do wild, wacky stuff, he hasn't tapped in any Morrison yet. You know he'll go there. I would have Doom Patrol would have been at the top of my list if it hadn't already had a 4-season TV show.
so that's on my list, but with the caveat after that show ends. I don't see him doing a Doom Patrol thing while it's still on, but it also is 4 seasons, and I could see them wrapping that up
But
within
I could
his
also see
tenure.
him like liking that show and not wanting to touch it because it's already been done decently well.
No,
Like
that is true.
that show's not. I mean, I haven't seen past the pilot, but from what I've heard, I mean, it's Doom Patrol. Like I'm not sure there's gonna be a lot more to do with Doom Patrol unless it just fell off and got really bad. Like I don't know. I
Yeah,
haven't looked at it, but like it's it's doing those early issues. Like
no, that is true. The main reason I put that on there is that the Suicide Squad movie has a lot of the Doom Patrol Suicide Squad crossover book, like a lot of the elements of that book in it. So
okay.
I could see him doing Doom Patrol. But yeah, no, you could be right about that, where he just goes like that show's fine enough on its own. But
It gets complicated, right? The things
mhm,
that have recently been put on screen and that have been done decently to really good.
mhm,
Like there's there's things that I might avoid considering them going to anytime soon because they were in the CW shows, except people quit watching those years ago.
mhm,
And Arrow's been off the air for a couple of years now. I think, you mentioned Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Regardless of whether that happens very quickly, I think one of the very first things that gets greenlit is a Green Arrow movie. Even over
absolutely, yeah.
Green Lantern. I like unless that's still a TV show. I think one of the first things that happens is big screen Green Arrow. It's the perfect time to do it because that's a character that is well known now, but
Mhm.
that fell off in popularity in the TV show. So you're not going to have people go like I mean, there will be comparisons, obviously, but it's not going to hurt the box office for that movie at this point, like it might
Absolutely.
have if you'd done it during that show's run. Plus, they greenlit a Flash movie while that show was still on and was still kind of half popular anyway.
Yeah. No, and that goes on. There's another thing on my list where it's like there was like a popular thing of that character, and like it's kind of crazy that we haven't tried to make a movie out of them yet. Obviously, we tried a Green Lantern movie in the 2000s and it fell through. But especially after the popularity of that show, like it's crazy that there's been no talks of Green Arrow, sorry, in the movies.
I think there will be now again, partly because Gunn loves that period, like of the period when Green Arrow got really popular in the comics.
Yeah, when
Like,
he name drops him in Peacemaker.
oh, well, there you go. The Again, I haven't watched that show yet. I gotta
You
do
know, of
that.
course.
The like the Mike Grell era. I would assume he's probably a big Denny O'Neil fan.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I would imagine so.
I
No
like
one's a DC fan and doesn't like Denny O'Neil.
Well, that's fair, but I mean specifically some of those
No, I
characters
know, I know.
that he worked on, like kind of exclusively.
No, I know. I'm just joking around, but
And
yeah,
speaking of
I
that,
agree.
another character on my list is the Question.
On my list too.
Yep, that'll happen. I think
I was like, that's I could see going either
whether he
way,
gets his
but it's
own
something I
movie or
want
not.
a show of.
Say again.
I said that was something I could see going either way, but I wanted. I was like, I want a question show. And I could see Gunn doing that. I just don't know if that would be on the top of his priority.
I could
But
also see him making the Question a major player in somebody else's movie.
well, that could be a thing too.
I could see like another Justice League or Justice something movie that does what the Bruce Timm animated show did and has the Question kind of front and center in the middle of of trying to unravel a conspiracy or something.
Mhm.
I could even see the
Absolutely.
Question showing up in that Waller project.
That'd be really cool. Um, yeah, well, and that kind of idea of like you have like different character stuff. That'll be how we get Booster Gold, because apparently, Gunn said the other day is the character he's most asked about, like to appear in things, and that's so weird.
I did not put Booster Gold on my list because
Well,
everybody
what's
knows how
funny
much I love Booster Gold. But
exactly.
and like this might be wishful thinking. I didn't even think of him. I could see that being a thing that Gunn would find funny and want to put in something. I don't see him getting his own movie right away.
Well, and what's funny is his exact statement was like, just because you people ask for this, it doesn't mean I'm gonna change it to like put him in or take him out or whatever. But it's just kind of interesting that that's the main character I hear about. I was like, that is kind of
Why?
interesting. I
Is it
wouldn't have thought that.
is it just because Gunn's known as a comedic director and that's a funny character?
Well, and it might be the type of character that is like obscure enough that like a lot of like enough people know about him to ask about it. Maybe I don't know.
Where like a bunch of people all independently thought I'm really clever for asking about this character. It's
Yeah,
such
like
a
I know
deep
about this
pull.
character, nobody else knows, like that kind of a thing. Maybe I don't
Hey, Gunn, I was really wondering if you'd put Skeets in something. Not with Booster Gold, just Skeets. Can we get a Skeets movie?
know.
Seriously. Oh, real quick,
It'll be Skeets on Ice.
I also wanted to mention, based on Robert Wild Super Chat when he said Gunn would do Zebra Batman or Zur-En-Arr Batman.
Mhm.
Multiple Batmans from lots of different universes is a really popular comic thing. It's a thing that you saw all over Brave and the Bold. That seems very much his sensibilities and the sensibilities of a DC Studios that at large is taking risks and is not afraid of the wild, wacky comic stuff. Is something that I imagine is probably on your list is Mixelplick and or Batmite, and I think we'll see both of those guys very
Uh,
early.
Mixelplix is Batman. I didn't because he's such a guarantee that I didn't bother putting him on it. Because Gunn has said even before he worked at DC that that's like one of his favorite DC characters, and he has like a little Batmite on his desk when he works.
See, so we'll get that pretty
And
quick.
I'm like, yeah. There's like a 2 minute scene where they talk about Batmite in Peacemaker,
Really? But again,
uh,
could you please recast your Batman and put him on screen before we have Batmite?
well, and it's
Please.
also just funny to imagine that of all the Batmans, it's Affleck that has a Batmite.
And now
uh,
I'm imagining a Batmite that's wearing the Dark Knight Returns outfit.
yeah. Also, I didn't have this thought until you said it. That kind of zebra Batman thing. I could also see the rainbow Batman thing
Yeah.
because he wanted to put the Rainbow Monster in the Suicide Squad, and I think he would have been the villain, and then he replaced him with Starro. But that was one of his like
Was he
short list characters.
was he not allowed to for some reason, or did he
No,
decide
he
to
just
change
had a
it?
list of
Or
like 20 characters where he was like, these are characters I almost put in, but they got replaced by other characters.
I see.
And you can kind of see like elements where it's like, okay, he wanted to put Man Bat. That probably would have been the King Shark character. Like there's, you can kind of like take them and pick out which character they would have been in the place of.
Yeah, and I kind of hope he doesn't mess with Man-Bat too early because I want that in what Reeves is doing.
No, absolutely.
Like I really want that to be one of the villains in the next movie.
Hmm. Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Senior Sticks, Amanda Waller is the DC movie universe. It sure feels that way. TY 199 FYI Barbara is mentioned in Reeves' script.
That is true. There's a deleted scene. I don't know if you know about this, Cap, but there's a
It
deleted
rings a
scene.
bell. Go ahead.
There's a deleted scene right before they go to find the cars in the Batman.
Something about, is he talking to her on the phone or something? Gordon?
Bruce calls Gordon and is like, "Hey, we have to go investigate this thing. There's something with like his cars that we have to look at." And Gordon's like around other cops and he doesn't want to let people know he's talking to Batman. So he's like, "Oh, hi, Barbara," like, and pretends that he's talking to his daughter.
How do we know it's his daughter and not his
I don't
wife?
remember what it says exactly in the script, but
But was it made distinctive where we know for sure
from
which
from what I
Barbara?
remember, it is supposed
Okay,
to
I'm just
specifically
saying
be
because
his
it's
daughter.
also the name of his first wife. So
No, I agree. I just don't remember what the line is exactly, but I remember reading it and going like, yeah,
this is not the first time in history people have jumped the gun with that kind of thing because they're not
jumped the gun.
because they're not familiar with Gordon enough to know that his wife's name is also Barbara.
Mhm. No, absolutely.
He's just married to Sarah Assany in the first place. Josh, $5 super chat. I absolutely adore DC's Legends. Ostrander on story,
Oh, that's right.
Wayne writing, and Byrne illustrating. So good.
Sorry, before you
And yeah,
said,
I'm totally requesting that. Thanks, Josh. Please do.
sorry, before I respond to that, Ty says the line in the script is, "Oh, it's my daughter, Barbara."
Oh, well,
I
there
thought
you
it
go.
was specifically,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm just making sure.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, we're finally caught up on the super chats for now, so let's go ahead. And once again, thanks everybody for your questions and comments, taking us in lots of directions we might not have gone necessarily, and this has been already way more thorough than I even thought it might be. So thanks a bunch for your participation. I'm having a great time, and I hope you are as well. Austin, let's back and forth it a little bit, shall we? And mention
Yeah.
some things that haven't come up yet that we think are either likely and or we would really like to see happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to start or do you want me to?
I'll gladly start. So
Yeah, go for it.
so I'm gonna start and mention this because I know this is on your list, but I want to get to say it first,
Okay.
which is Resurrection Man.
Yeah, that's number 2 on my list. So.
I love me some Resurrection Man, and for the longest time I thought I was the only person on the planet who knew what that was, because I got it in a. I got every issue of Resurrection Man before he got brought back in New 52 in a collection I bought back when I was buying and selling comics a lot. I used to buy big collections, 3, 4, up to 10,000 comics, and I'd keep what I wanted and sold the rest. And I'd never heard of Resurrection Man when I bought that, and I read all the way through it, and I thought it was really interesting, really fun. It's that's an Abnett and Lanning thing, I think.
Oh, cool. I should check that out then.
I
I've only
think.
read him in New 52 Suicide Squad, which goes full Orci and Kurtzman, where they cure death, and it's like, oh, what's the point of
Oh.
having a Suicide Squad thing where death is cured?
And I didn't even. Great. I was it Magic Triple Blood? I didn't even realize that he was in that until you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, it's like I think the end of the second trade, Deadshot dies, and then but the mission they were on, they have to capture Resurrection Man, and they like use him to like engineer his power to like create a regenerative like serum
Oh,
thing.
of course they did that.
Yeah,
Of course
so
you got to
it's
do
like,
that with the Resurrection Man.
yeah, And then they're like, "Look, we brought Deadshot back. It's okay."
It's a really quirky power set, and it just
Mhm.
seems like, and also gritty, and is kind of walking that line between mainstream DC and Vertigo, and is just one of those things that I could really see his sensibilities wanting to greenlight. And I never before thought there was a chance at a Resurrection Man movie, and now I think it's actually like really plausible. The
Yeah.
more I'm thinking about it, if you're not familiar with Resurrection Man, Mitch, I forget his last name, but he has this ability where he can't die, or he does die, but he always comes back to life, and he always comes back with a different power. And sometimes they're really useful powers, and sometimes they're really super freaking lame, and sometimes they're like horrifying, and it makes for some really fun kind of premises for I mean, it's an ongoing story, but for kind of anthology stuff where like every issue you're dealing with a different power, and it honestly would maybe even make for a better TV show if you think about it.
That could be like a really fun episodic show.
It's like Quantum
Absolutely.
Leap except with superpowers.
Yeah. It's like Highway to Heaven, except he dies at the end of every episode.
Right, so I don't know, maybe the opposite of that. What's something on your list that you think is liable to
Um,
happen? But anyway, sorry. So you also put that on your list, and you said it was because he does show up in Suicide Squad in 52.
yeah, New 52, I was like, oh, I'm gonna guess that's probably something on his radar, and it's like the kind of thing that I could see him being interested in, that character.
But that character is so like that. That used to be more deep pull than it is now because he did get his own book during New 52, and so like five more people now know who that is. That
Yeah.
was one of the books that got canceled before the second wave of New 52. It didn't even make it through to the next set of books. But as cool as that would be as a TV show, I think realistically he's gonna be on a team, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
actually a
could
lot
see
more
it.
likely that he's in yet another iteration of the Suicide Squad or something. I
Or
and
like a
also
Justice League Dark thing if we do that.
that too. But don't you think Gunn would just love the kind of irony or the joke of Resurrection Man's on the Suicide Squad and he can't die,
Hmm.
or like
Yeah.
he keeps dying. You know, like maybe Waller picks him for a particular power he has right now, not realizing what his power is, and then blows him up, and then he comes back, and now like he can fly or he gets giant or something. She's like, well,
He has like
crap.
a really dumb power.
Yeah, yeah. He's just like he can make everybody omelets in his hands.
Yeah, exactly. Before I throw out my first one, Robert Wild knocked it out in a super chat. So I'd
Yeah.
say just read that super chat and then I'll throw out something else from my
He
list.
says, "What's more likely, Resurrection Man or Animal Man?" I would say so. I didn't think of that, and I should have. That's also New 52. Animal Man. I
When I
think.
think Animal Man's like a really like popular 80s run as
Well,
well.
that's also Morrison, is it not?
Yes,
During the same period as Doom Patrol, or like right before it. Isn't that the first big thing he gets at DC?
I
I
think
think it
so.
is.
I think so. It's like around that period though, which I've never read, but I've only heard good things about.
I'm gonna put it like this. I think Animal Man is more likely for its own movie or show or whatever. And Resurrection Man is equally likely, but as a member of a team,
Mhm.
as opposed to getting his
Absolutely.
own thing. But I think both of those characters are likely to be
Mhm.
things you'll see.
Yeah, and I'll throw off one that would also fit with a team thing. I put Dead Man as well. I think that could be if we do
Good
some sort of,
call.
yeah.
Plus, don't you want that team up? Don't you want Dead Man and Resurrection Man?
I want that as a TV show, just Resurrection Man and Dead Man.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. Forget Green Lantern, Green Arrow. Give me that show.
This conversation is so interesting because before Gunn got this job, most of what we're talking about are not things that I would have been speculating about and would be getting excited like maybe at some point we'll see them or we'll see them done well because
Mhm.
they're with Gunn in charge. I'm expecting like as much weird off the beaten path stuff as mainstream, or maybe even less mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But I
No,
also don't
absolutely.
think but I also don't think people should jump the gun and expect that because it's James Gunn, you won't see anything traditional either.
No, and I think it's also important to note that he wanted, or maybe I don't know if wanted, but Superman was going to be in his Suicide Squad movie. So like he's not entirely against doing that big stuff.
And once again, he's not going to be making them all himself.
Exactly. And I feel like he will hand it off to people that actually want to make things. I think that's really important.
I
Um,
also think he'll take pitches. I don't think he'll have.
Especially after being at Marvel where they rejected like every pitch he had.
Now,
Absolutely.
here's the $100,000 question for you. Do
Mhm.
you think Gunn will continue to make movies
Yes.
himself? Or has he
Yes, I
already
think
said that he wants to?
he's already said that he will, but I thought that already going into it. Because I will say, if Gunn isn't directing anything or writing anything anymore, my interest in him being the head of DC like wanes a little bit. Because it
Sure.
also means that it's taking off like talent that I want to see on DC. So I'm glad that he's going to be able to do both. And it also helps that he's co-head of DC. Like you have him as a creative person and you have like an actual producer and they can kind of come together and you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, which was really smart.
Absolutely.
It makes you kind of wonder if, like, Feige needs something like that.
Yeah, because so like when you hear people talk about like, oh, well, this person should run this company, this person should run this company, it's always like writers and directors, and I always go, okay, but you also need to have like that producer mindset, and that's not to say that directors and writers can't be good producers,
No, but
but
it almost never happens, which is why it was such a shock when he
mhm,
got that, because that is a name I had heard bandied about when people were like, "Hey, maybe Gunn should just be the Feige of DC," and it's like, but he's a creative guy. That's not how you do that. So
mhm.
smart that they paired him with a guy that knows how to do that job.
Exactly. So you're gonna have one person that goes, okay, here's like how you sell things, and then you have the other person that's like, okay, but here's like cool story things that we should be doing, and like you can kind of meet in the middle and get like what both of them are doing
Well, it's kind of
if
it
it works.
yeah, it's kind of like publishing with comics, right? Like how
Mhm.
often do we put the really popular successful writer or artist at the top of the company, having him do all the boring business stuff he's never had to do before and doesn't really know what he's doing,
Mhm.
right? And isn't doing as much of like the creative editing stuff. There should be maybe there should be two guys at the top of every creative company
Mhm.
if you
Yeah,
think about it.
absolutely.
Robert said I really should have called the stream Captain Austin Jump the Gun.
Yeah, that is true. That's the new jumping the shark.
If I had, nobody would know what we were talking about. Senior Sticks, $2 super chat. What would or might Resurrection Man's super pet be? I don't know.
Ooh. It would be a phoenix, like easily.
That's so obvious. I
But
almost
it's
want to
so
make it
obvious to the
something
point that it
else.
has to be
It
that.
has to be that. Okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
The real question would be, what's Animal Man's pet?
so I'm sorry. We talked about Animal Man a bunch, and then you said you were gonna throw out something else. Did you
Oh,
throw something
I
out?
threw out Dead Man.
Dead Man. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh, Swamp Thing.
that's on my list as well. Yep.
Swamp Thing got
I've said that since before he was the head of the company that I would like to see a director write a Swamp thing.
Swamp Thing got one season of a TV show that I heard good things about.
Mhm.
Even before DC Universe got folded into HBO Max, and I never got around to watching it.
Mhm.
So I should at some point, but that's not going to deter that because it's been a few years and nobody watched that show.
The big thing that show was kind of known for was that it got canceled.
Yeah,
And then people who watched it really liked it, obviously. But I just mean like mainstream, like that was the big news with it.
I think a lot of
No,
people found out about it because it got canceled.
yeah, and I really want to go back now and watch Swamp Thing. I want to watch the Constantine show, and actually want to check out that Doom Patrol show because
It's got
I
a
think it could be
it's
really
got a
cool.
stellar pilot. I just
Yeah, no,
haven't watched past that yet, but
I've heard great things, and that Suicide Squad crossover by Ostrander that I read is really good. So it made me interested in those characters.
one of the reasons I put Swamp Thing on the list is because I think Gunn. We haven't really talked about competition with Marvel yet, but I think he has obviously such a inside, unique perspective about how business is done at the other house,
Mhm.
and I don't know that he's going to be thinking about it so much like how can we beat Marvel at their own game, because he's liked working over there. He and Feige seem to get along and are friends. Like he's one of the first things he said when he got the job was basically uh, if we're successful, they're successful, vice versa. Like we're not really in competition in that way. Let's just all make good stuff, which I think was really smart of him to say, given that he's got a movie for them coming out next year. But
Yeah, the middle fingers will come up after May next year.
but I do think here's the thing. I think with him in charge, things are going to be very amiable between those companies to the point where I don't think crossovers are impossible. I really think eventually, if Gunn is successful and keeps that job, especially if he keeps it past the initial 4 years, I think anything's possible at this point. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
I necessarily even want that. I just at one time I would have said you'll never see the Roger Rabbit thing. You'll never see Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny on screen together. I think now with superheroes you could.
Mhm.
I think you could.
Yeah.
Um,
When WB and Disney are apparently both circling a drain, so they're gonna have to.
that's true. What if they're hell? They're likely to merge at this point just to keep each other, just to
They're
survive.
both gonna be bought by Apple.
One of them, by the end of the summer, with Warner's, only had enough money to put out 2 more movies in this year,
And they both bomb.
and Disney, we just found out, has lost $1.5 billion in with streaming services in the last quarter.
Yeah, well,
Quarter.
I don't get like too into this, but before I jumped on the call with you, Cap, I was reading an article about how apparently Disney's doing so much restructuring that they're making Marvel look at Phase 5 and Phase 6 and be like, okay, people didn't like Phase 4, like you actually have to crack down and like start
Wow.
working on quality. If that's true, who knows? Like it's up in the
And
air.
they should call up Zaslav so that he can tell them about quality.
Yeah, James Gunn will replace Feige.
But anyway,
He'll want
the,
both.
the point I was trying to make is I do think if you're Gunn, you've got to be smart enough to look at what's been working and what hasn't at Marvel and take all the right lessons from that, right? It's not about uh, like how do we copy them or how do we try to be the polar opposite of them, which are both mistakes that the DCEU made early on, I think. With Justice League, it was we got to get to Avengers as fast as possible, but they also tried to be the opposite of Marvel in like let's be really dark and broody and have no sense of humor about ourselves, and then we'll be filling this void that's not there for superhero stuff, and that's the ticket. See, I think what he's liable to do is, and this is again the reason I brought up Swamp Thing, is to go, it's DC even more than Marvel. You've got all of these different properties that were independently created apart from each other, many of which weren't even supposed to be in the same continuity in the first place. Let's do the shared universe thing. Let's put them all together and have a good sense of continuity, but let's have a lot of different genres and tell a lot of different types of stories. Probably try to get away from the typical 3-act superhero formula for every single movie we make.
Mhm.
Let's just make a horror film. Let's just do Swamp Thing and make it actually kind of scary and make it not really a superhero thing. And I
Mhm.
think he'll do some stuff like that.
No, absolutely. And both of his DC villains have had like horror vibes to them. Like one of my favorite things about Starro is that he's actually like really terrifying when you first get him, and then like he's a giant starfish, but like he's still kind of scary, and like the like
Yeah.
little starfishes that take you over, and like they don't make jokes about that. Like that's very
No,
creepy.
they play that straight and it's messed up and yeah, it's great.
Mhm. Yeah, and then that kind of stuff falls into Peacemaker as well. So I think that kind of horror vibe for Swamp Thing would absolutely be something that he'd be down for, and it could be like an actual R-rated movie. Not that it has to be, but it is nice that we can go there.
I also think you'll see experimentation on the TV side and you'll
Mhm.
see them because I keep saying Gunn, but like he's not gonna make everything himself. I think you'll
Mhm.
see whoever he hires go a step or two farther than WandaVision and not be scared of weird concepts that may or may not work. I think you could see a straight up sitcom
Mhm.
on the TV side, and things like
Yeah.
that. I think you'll see them take some of the cues from Disney Plus in because with respect to them, their two TV specials have been really random and different. And however you feel about Werewolf by Night, it looked different. It wasn't the same thing they've been making. Um, I think you'll see them do that kind of experimentation, but even go farther with the risk taking.
Mhm. No, absolutely, I agree with that.
What's
Sorry,
something
I'm next,
else
right?
on your list? Yeah, go ahead.
Uh, I have Captain Atom next on my list.
Oh, good
Um,
call. Now, again,
especially
is Captain Atom a solo thing, or is that just a character?
so I put that as a project. I could see that going either way, but my big thing is that because Captain Atom is the like government funded superhero, I think that's what we'll end the Waller stuff on is like
Oh.
oh, the Suicide Squad stuff is like messed up and they did that. Let's make Superman now. Like that will be our next government thing. Um, I think that's possible.
And so the implications could be even scarier.
Or that, or it like now we're actually trying to make something that's actually good,
Yeah.
like as opposed to what Waller was doing.
I think that entirely depends on whether I'm right about Kingdom Come.
And I've never read Kingdom Come, so it's
Because if they make Kingdom Come, then they're not going to make a Captain Atom movie unless Kingdom Come is more of an Elseworlds kind of thing. Because to be fair, that's a thing that's set in the future, but you could kind of adapt it to be now. It would be a little different, but you
Mhm.
could sort of do it. But then it would be hard to do some of the big iconography from that movie because or from that story. I don't think you're going to want to do Kingdom Come unless you can have a Batman that's held together with metal and a Superman that's got gray hair and he's working out on a farm.
Mhm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so so maybe I'm wrong when I say that. Like, I guess wouldn't it be interesting if you did like an Elseworlds futuristic kind of thing? You introduce a character like Captain Atom there, and then you bring him into present day in another project that's unrelated but played by the same actor. Like, I could see them doing stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and also, with the Superman with gray hair made me think of this. Kingdom Come could be like the end goal. Like that could be like the thing in 10 years that we're building towards. And, you know, Cavill will be 10 years older at that point.
Yeah, but it would be pretty wild if they did. Okay, this is another thing to talk about
Mhm.
because, and I might be totally off base when I say this. I think Gunn's sensibilities, anyway, are likely would be likely to lead him to uh not do the thing Marvel's doing and have things move in real time, but slow or stop aging and just replace actors
Yeah.
at DC. Like, especially the way you've been talking about Peacemaker, which just sounds like a lived-in universe where people don't really age. Like, and I don't know. Maybe ultimately we'll find out that they do, but if you do that, you wouldn't do the Kingdom Come thing. You would have that would just be an Elseworlds thing that doesn't happen in the mainstream continuity. But what do you think about that? Because that would be a really great way to have it stand apart.
I agree, and I think the ultimate setup for that is Batman. Like recast him now, and like that's our
You
precedent.
set the precedent where every time an actor is getting too old, or you, and again, I don't mean to be ageist or whatever. Like, I'm sure if they really like working with an actor, they'll let them look older than they ought to before they recast. But I'm just saying that, like, eventually Iron Man, Captain America, those guys were going to be in their 60s and 70s if the MCU kept going, and they couldn't realistically keep playing those characters unless you said, look how old they are. Um, Marvel being traditionally based more in the real world, it always made sense to let those characters age. And years ago, before they did that, I said that's how the MCU would handle that. That they'll just write characters out instead of recast them and keeping them young. And that is indeed what they've done. DC really should go the other way.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I kind of
Especially
hope they
since they're
do.
the god figures as opposed to Marvel's real world, like you said.
Yeah, the icons,
Hmm.
the mythic characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
I
is it
agree.
my turn?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, you might have left this off your list because this might be one of those obvious things because I know there's been rumor about this, or
Yeah,
maybe Gunn's come out and said that he wants it. But Lobo almost
Lobo's on my
certainly,
list.
yeah, that's got to happen, right?
Yeah, so Lobo is, I think, the first thing that he teased. Now, I also feel like a lot of Gunn's teasing is him just having a laugh at people because they'll read into anything. But I also
Could
think
he also be
Lobo is a
testing the
character he
waters
would
a little
do.
bit and see what people want, though?
No, and it could be that too. But Lobo just seems like the type of character that he would do. And I also think I have a casting for Lobo.
Oh,
I think he would put Batista in that role.
you think so?
Yeah,
I could see that.
yeah,
He
I don't think it
needs
would
to
be a bad
play it
idea.
very differently from Drax
Absolutely.
if he does
Um,
it. I don't actually see Batista in that role, but I could see Gunn casting him.
because he wanted Batista for Peacemaker, and then Batista did Army of the Dead instead, which turned out for the better because John Cena's a way better casting choice. Uh, but
I would love to see Lobo as the villain for a Superman movie.
that would be awesome. I'll throw out like side character list thing. I also have Brainiac on there for a Superman movie. I think we'll finally get the Brainiac Superman movie.
Yeah, again, that should be inevitable. That's the only thing anybody ever talks about when we're talking about another Superman movie. It's weird we still have never had that.
Well, every Brainiac Superman movie always falls through. It's apparently just the curse of Brainiac. There's been like three.
Yeah. He was I mean, obviously he was supposed to be in Superman Lives, going all the way back to 97.
He was supposed to be the villain of that. He was going to be the villain of Superman Returns 2. I think there's another one that he was supposed to be the villain of that it's not coming to mind. But
Um he was in Justice League Mortal.
oh, I didn't even know
I
that.
think. I think.
Mhm.
I think.
Well, there you go. That's why that fell through.
We just got a big super chat, and I'll mention that in a minute. AMC Comics, but can he top the Krypton Lobo? I mean, probably not, because the Krypton Lobo is great.
I didn't even know he was
That
in that.
show is
Okay.
not good and is baffling, but that guy is killer. I'll send you a clip of that, Austin. He's really good.
Mhm.
Burned in
Absolutely.
1999 super chat. Really appreciate you, man. Thanks so much. He says James Gunn is talented, but I'll only get excited once good things start coming. Video games
Yeah, of
being
course.
canon. 2 is neat, but I just can't care about anything DC other than Batman and Joker right now.
I absolutely agree with what you're coming from. I'm more excited just because I like him personally, and he's not made a movie I don't like. So it makes me go, okay, like I'm interested to see what he's going to do with it at the very least. Like, absolutely, I get where you're coming from, and I'm gonna have to wait to start seeing things, and it's going to be at least 2 years before we start seeing any actual, um, or not evidence, but like anything come from this.
Yeah, usually I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. I think in this case I'm cautiously excited, if that makes any sense.
That's
Uh,
about how I feel.
I have reservations, and the big
Mhm.
one is uh, that even though I think he'll likely greenlight again some more traditional stuff, if his sensibilities get the better of him, we're gonna get more like harder R, harder edged superhero stuff, and not enough variety. Um, but like that's a worry, but I don't know how founded that is. Like I'm just saying that based on what I know of what he makes and what he likes to make. Um,
Well, and that's where I think you have your second like producer person.
yeah.
Um, like I don't think Gunn would make an R-rated Superman movie, but I think even then, like if that even were to come up, that other guy would go,
No,
no.
and that's not even what I'm worried about. I'm more
No, no, I know,
worried.
but I'm just throwing that
I would be
as
more
an example.
concerned that he just would not even be as interested in stuff like Superman, and that it's all gonna be like really obscure, off the beaten path type stuff, like if he had his druthers. Um, but I actually don't think that's what he's gonna do. I'm just saying that was initially the first thing that came to
Yeah.
mind when he got the job. That was kind of my big initial reservation.
Mhm.
And then I thought about it, and I was like, but reined in with Guardians, he's weirdly so good at walking that line between making something that is uh like harder edged and has adult sensibilities and still is feels weirdly wholesome and is totally fine for children. Um and so surely he brings that to running a superhero empire.
No, absolutely. I think with the obscure thing that you talked about, I don't think he'll direct anything big. I think he will continue to just direct the obscure things. I know he's talked in the past about how he prefers to write like smaller things because there's not as much pressure on you of like you
Yeah.
mess up a character when you write them.
So he's not
Uh,
going to save himself for the big events. He doesn't want to come in and do Crisis or Kingdom Come or whatever it
I
is.
can see him doing that. I can see him writing characters like Superman into stuff that he's doing now, but I don't see him directing a Superman movie. Or directing Justice League or what have you.
The reason I say cautiously excited, though, is that A, the man understands good storytelling, and you want somebody like that at the helm, especially after the tumultuous history with the DCEU that began with a guy who absolutely does not. And the
Mm.
second thing is, it means risk taking at a level that we like, whether it's good or bad. Um, at a
Possibly
level
more than Marvel
that we
like ever
have not been
has.
seeing with Marvel lately. And I mean, variety is the name of the game. Like that, whether it's more stuff for adults than I want or not, at least they're probably going to try some stuff. They're probably going to take some chances. You Gunn's not the guy you pick when you're trying to totally play it safe.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And so, just from a creative standpoint, I'm having a hard time not applauding them for that choice.
Mhm. No, I mean Gunn's entire career is that. He made two movies that bombed, and then Marvel said, "Okay, make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie." And then he went, "Yeah, okay." It turned out huge, and then he went to DC, and they said, "Hey, you can have anything. You can even have Superman if you want." And he went, "I'll do a sequel to Suicide Squad, a movie no one likes."
Yeah, it's
And it's
crazy.
going to be a $200 million R-rated film.
Which may not have been the smartest choice in retrospect, but
Well, and part of that is obviously COVID. Like, it's so hard to say how that would have gone.
yeah.
But my favorite thing
Well,
behind this,
yeah. Robert Wild said he's shocked it even happened, or this is happening because of how poorly the Suicide Squad did at the box office. But I don't think you can really know how well that movie did versus if COVID hadn't happened. That's the thing, is they're probably just not even looking at the numbers with that. That's a mulligan.
especially because it was like I think at the very least in the top five like most successful HBO Max movies. So it's hard to
Yeah.
say.
And they might be looking more at those numbers because remember they came on record, if memory serves, and said, we're not going to take box office into account during 2021 when we decide what things we just put out. We're going to make sequels do.
Yeah, because it's so hard to say. And with the Suicide Squad specifically, like you have like a worldwide pandemic, so not as many people want to go to the theater, but also it's R-rated, so like a lot of people aren't going to want to leave their kids in the middle of like a pandemic to go to the theater. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot, there's so many variables that go into it. But then also Peacemaker was apparently like their most successful show or like just original show or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
so they've got reason to trust
mhm.
him certainly.
Yeah,
At
exactly.
least on the creative side. And also, I mean, let's be real, like the shape that company's been in, there's not a lot of people that would jump at the chance to do that job. Right?
No,
Like even
absolutely.
finding somebody that would want to take that on can't be easy right now.
hmm Yeah, exactly.
It's not
Because
like
you're
they had their druthers on it.
no, and I've seen Marvel fans go like, you know, Marvel's good to cut the fat of cutting him out of their company. Like he went from being a Marvel director to the head of a sinking ship, and I'm like, okay, but
Because didn't they try to offer it to Feige first?
apparently,
I mean, they didn't I'm applauding them for this choice, but also they were desperate, man.
if they had asked Feige back when Ike Perlmutter was still in charge, he probably would have gone, but not now. It's funny that they asked though.
Burned also says it's good news. Don't get me wrong. I just watched the holiday special and it's great, but I'll believe it when I see it. I love James Gunn
Yeah.
too, for the most part, and
There's
it
nothing wrong with being like critical of something and
and
being
healthy
like,
skepticism.
yeah,
Their track record has not been great,
absolutely.
obviously, and there's I think there's less concern now, and like we haven't seen how Zaslav deals with success versus failure yet because under
Mhm.
his watch they haven't put out anything that's been made while he was there yet. Obviously, he's
Yeah.
very green. It's been a few months. Um, so I don't want to say that there's every reason to assume that Warner's is going to go back to their 20 16 playbook, and if they put out a superhero movie that doesn't do that does a couple $100,000 less than they thought they would, they go all the way back to the drawing board like they're Wile E. Coyote or something.
Yeah.
But that's been the track record, and there is. I can also see why a person would be a little bit concerned that at the first sign of trouble they'll bail on a good idea.
hmm No,
Hopefully not.
absolutely.
But when we say they, we're talking about a totally new set of people now because it's not even the same company anymore. Now it's the people that ran Discovery, um, you know, running this company.
hmm
They're not going to handle things the same way.
Well, that's been my thing with Zaslav from the start is it's hard to say right now if he's doing a good job or not because we don't really know. Like there's decades that have gone like led up to the moment that we're in right now, and all of his cuts is because they've lost so much money throughout like the last several years that it's like desperation more than anything.
Yeah. Well, and
Like I
that's just Hollywood right now. Let's keep
yeah,
it real, right? Like we're starting to finally see the real, honest to God fallout of what happened during the pandemic, during the lockdowns.
hmm no,
Like
absolutely.
it's starting to really affect the bottom line.
No, I've said for a while that Zaslav is the person that everybody like that was captain in the moment the water hit the deck of the ship. Like the ship's been sinking for a long time, but he was just the captain when it hit the deck,
Well,
and
and
they
let
all
me read this real
realized.
quick because I don't think Robert understands what we're talking about. He says the Batman is the most successful comic movie both critically and at the box office this year. I wouldn't call DC a sinking ship, but Warner as the company is
Mhm.
financially.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's not enough to bring them back from the brink. Of course, it's one movie. So like Yeah, it did really well, but they're just hemorrhaging money. That's why they had to pull the plug on so many projects and
Mhm.
stop this what had been up until now the kind of conventional wisdom with them and Disney and Paramount and a lot of these companies, which is just throw 1,000 things at the wall and oversaturate and hope to God that every person with a Roku box or a Fire Stick gets your streaming service. It's
Yeah.
not working.
No, exactly. I mean, that's the reason we had to move every DC movie for the rest of the year to next year. Aquaman got pushed an entire year
It can't
because they couldn't
even
afford to release it.
they can't even afford to release it.
Yeah.
Like just to do advertising dollars and what it costs to get them in the theaters and stuff. Like that's how bad off they are financially.
Yeah, and the two movies they could afford to release bombed, like I said. Like, Black Adam didn't, like, guarantee did not make its money back. That Don't Worry, Darling movie, I don't think did either.
But Robert, my point, I think that's what Austin was talking about when he said sinking ship was just Warner's, like, because he says I was referring to Gunn being the head of DC, not Warner's in general.
Well, and like DC as like a thing is also a sinking ship in that like the Batman's different, obviously, but like as a universe, like it is from the get-go is immediately falling, at least for me, because I don't like any
yeah.
of those movies.
If we're not talking financially, and we're just talking about the success of that as a cohesive universe, D minus.
And that's peak nice.
Yeah, D minus with a couple of projects here and there that I like, despite the shared universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we are at 2 hours, Austin. Let's
Mhm.
throw out a few more of these just real quick.
Yeah, did you go last or was it me? I can't remember.
No,
Oh,
I
I
said Lobo, and
that's
then
right.
it was a whole rabbit hole. Go ahead.
Teen Titans, 100%.
Can I
That's
count?
the thing.
Can I counter you?
Go for it.
Young Justice.
Yeah. Um, I could see that being Teen Titans over Young Justice, but maybe specifically because Teen Titans has a ton of brand recognition, and Young Justice does too, but not to the extent of Teen Titans, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess the main reason I was thinking that is just because that still has a TV show on,
Hmm. No, and that's true.
but that may not make a difference.
Teen
Again,
Titans was the thing I
considering
was
the whole
referring to
Flash thing,
earlier.
and yeah,
When you were talking about Arrow, where I said one of my things on my list is something that's crazy we've not tried to make a movie of yet because the brand recognition's already there.
yeah.
And that's it is Teen Titans because like that was a huge show in the 2000s. It's got like a show that's still pretty big right now. It had an animated movie.
Well,
Um,
and that's also yeah, and also a show that is polarizing at best and is
yeah,
not at all accessible to the mainstream. Um,
and everybody that hates it goes, "Why can't it be the Teen Titans I want?" Though, so like I think that's likely to be something uh, that we get like pretty quickly.
well, and fuel for your fire
Mhm.
is the most popular period for the comics. There is the same period we keep going to,
Exactly, and that's another big thing too.
like Judas Contract and all that. That's all late '80s stuff, I think.
Well, and one of my things on possible supporting characters is Deathstroke, because I don't know if
He's
you
on
know
my
this,
list.
Cap. He was the main character of the Suicide Squad, like to the point where we have concept art that is like exact shots from that movie, but with Deathstroke instead of Bloodsport, Idris Elba's
I
character.
didn't know that, but that's not surprising.
Yeah, so
I figure he'll get a solo project pretty early.
mhm. No, I think that's true too, because there's been a lot of talks that Gunn has another show he's working on, and I think that's one of the possibilities is Deathstroke.
Okay, I'll throw out another one real quick. I've only got a couple more. Legion of Superheroes.
I almost put it on my list and then went, I don't even know enough about Legion of Superheroes to say anything about it, so I'm just gonna leave it off.
Uh, it's it's quirky. It's a big team thing. It's also that period that we keep talking about. And it's a thing that you could handle any way you wanted to. You could easily set it in the future and not have it connected to anything that you're doing currently, or just make some kind of clever or vague connections, but they don't have to talk to each other too much. Or you could have it entirely wrapped up in the continuity that you're doing now. My eyes will glaze over. I don't care about Legion, but I
That's
think
why I'm shocked it made your list. But
just because I think it's likely to happen.
No,
It's
absolutely.
I was trying to mine for things that haven't been dealt with very much in live action recently, or weren't all that popular when they did. So like Legion shows up in, I think, the Arrowverse. There's some Legion stuff, maybe not. I can't remember. It's in Smallville.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know.
but
They should have
that's
done that over Legends. It would have actually been a team.
it's got a cartoon show that not a lot of people saw, but I've heard good things about. But like, I think that's kind of uh, like Guardians. It's a thing that's kind of ripe to get more into the mainstream.
Mhm. Okay.
Again, I don't care, but I think, but I do think that's likely to happen. And real quick, on a similar note, I also could see um, Challengers of the Unknown for similar reasons.
Oh, okay. I think Gunn will watch this video and he'll greenlight a project specifically for you, and it'll be the Legion of Superheroes and the Emancipation of one Booster Gold.
And I'll be like, "F you, James Gunn."
And you'll cancel everything else.
Uh,
My next thing is Jonah Hex.
I don't think James Gunn knows who I am, but if he does, you're suggesting he hates me.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He saw your Guardians 2 rewind, and he was like, you should have given it a better score.
Jonah Hex 100%. There's no way that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a project he could specifically take on himself. He's talked about wanting to do a Western before, and I think that could be the place where he scratches that itch.
I want to see if the next thing Gunn directs for them is a solo thing and not a team thing, because he hasn't really done that yet. I mean, I guess Peacemaker.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even that's kind of a team thing, because he's got like the guys in the chair, if you will, and he's got Vigilante.
Do you think they'll? And I haven't seen, like I said, I haven't seen that show yet. I'm curious to see how Vigilante is handled, because I like Vigilante in the comics a lot, and I know he's totally different in that show.
Mm.
But do you think there's the possibility of Vigilante getting a spinoff?
I would love that. I don't know like what a Vigilante thing would look like. Gunn's Vigilante, the way I always describe him is he's like the love child of comic book Deadpool and movie Mantis, where he's I know, right?
This isn't even like one of these things is not like the other. There's two things that don't go together at all.
No, I know, right? But it's like he's got that kind of clueless, like bizarre kind of like the way that he acts thing that Mantis does. But it also has that like ruthless, like I mean not ruthless, but like he's kind of like a complete idiot in everything except for like killing people. And he doesn't understand that he's just like a serial killer, but he thinks he's a superhero and that he's like this really good person that goes around stopping crimes. And I don't know, like that's kind of how I describe him.
Okay, I know I referenced this earlier, but you know what he sounds like?
Mhm.
He sounds like, going back to the Amazon Tick show, he sounds like Overkill if he was the Tick.
Yeah, that's another good one too. Yeah,
I'm more excited to watch that show now, because I'd watch that.
He's got this great line where they're running from the cops, and Peacemaker's like, "You can't kill anybody, okay? Like these are cops, like these are good people. You can't kill them." And they're running, and Vigilante like backhands a knife into a guy's head, and Peacemaker's like, like I said no killing," and Vigilante goes, don't worry, man. Like he'll probably just be like crippled or like just like injured. Like I don't think he might not die from that. Just like a knife like right to the forehead.
5590 ERS says Superman Blue. I'd watch that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Superman Blue versus Superman Red. I'd watch
And
that.
because it's Gunn, he would play Blue. I mean, he probably wouldn't, because I can't imagine he'd actually like that song. But yeah.
It could be hilarious. I mean, obviously, we need to get Superman right before we turn him into pure energy and give him an energy clone and have them fighting each other. But it could be hilarious. I think you do that in animation, though. I think you do a goofy cartoon show where you just make fun of everything that was stupid in the '90s.
Oh, you know what you
I think that
do.
could be great.
You know what you do. Superman like gets split and he's red and blue, and he walks into the Justice League headquarters and he's like, like this is so weird. And then Rainbow Batman walks in,
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, I guess this just happened to all of us right now. I don't know what's going on.
it's just and then they investigate and they assume it has something to do with like the color spectrum, but it's not that at
Yeah, it's just
all.
something different. Yeah.
Okay, I think I mentioned all of my other characters.
Yeah, a lot of
Um,
mine have come up already. I do have a few that haven't, but a lot of them have.
okay, well, go ahead and knock those out real quick.
So I also have Firestorm. I put on
Oh,
here
sure.
for a
Good
solo
call.
project. hmm
And that could be really cool.
Yeah, I think a Firestorm thing would be really cool. Especially like I would like to see him and Blue Beetle hang out because I liked them in Injustice too.
That was actually a thing early on that I thought Arrow and Flash did pretty well, or the Flash did pretty well was Firestorm.
Yeah, for
When
sure.
he was still Ronnie Raymond, I like that casting. I thought they were pretty good. It gets not as good later, like everything, but
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, and that's kind of one of those like like more mainstream but kind of off the beaten path thing because it's only really been done in the CW.
and is yet another one of those questions: is that its own thing? Does it get
I
its own
put it,
movie?
yeah, I put it as like maybe it could be a show, but who knows? Because he could also just be a supporting character.
I guess I should have said Plastic Man or Elongated Man. I didn't even think of that.
I didn't either, but that's a really good call. Yeah, both of those slipped my mind, but absolutely.
Yep.
I also have Gotham City Sirens. I could see them doing that with Harley, doing like the Catwoman and Poison Ivy thing, and that's not something I could see Reeves doing. So,
I think I didn't have this thought until you brought that up and mentioned Zatanna earlier. I could
mhm.
also see that as like a miniseries or an HBO Max show
Oh yeah, for sure.
where you also use it as an excuse to have them like hang out with or tangle with other major female DC characters.
Well, and that's what Birds of Prey should have been in the first place if it was just going to be a Harley Quinn movie.
Well, and also there was talk of a Gotham City Sirens movie for a while.
There
Like
was,
during
yeah,
that, I just remembered that during that period where it was like there's like four different Joker projects. That
like
that was
18 different Harley
that was one of
things.
the Harley things was Gotham City Sirens, and Birds of Prey came out. A mention of that project came out at the same time, and I was like, well, which of these sounds more likely? And then the one that sounded less likely was the one that got made, and it was terrible.
I know. I've always said it would be like if the Marvel Fantastic Four movie was just a Deadpool movie, and the FF show up at the end.
Oh, 559 also mentions Etrigan, probably
It
in
didn't make my
something.
list, but great choice. I didn't think of that either.
Good call. I brought
Which is
this
weird because I always think of Etrigan, but
I
not this
brought
time.
this character up earlier, but I didn't put him on my list, but I meant to. Don't you think um don't you think Azrael is possible?
Absolutely.
I
That's
think
not.
as
That's something I don't know if Reeves would touch, so I could absolutely see the DCU handle that.
Yeah, and I think you could do a lot of really interesting, like current social commentary with that. That's part of why I'm thinking that you could go there, where you deal with like crazy conspiracies and like cults have been in the news a lot lately and that kind of thing. Like I don't know. It seems like the right time for that.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. No, that would be really fun. And Azrael's just pretty cool. And like doing that sort of a thing would
He's got
be
such a neat
different.
costume.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've never made anything like that.
hmm No, we've never really had anything like that. That could be something you could maybe do in Deathstroke too, like have
That's a
Azrael as a supporting character.
that's a good idea, or even like the main antagonist of that movie.
Yeah, that too. That could be really fun.
You can have some really cool moral ambiguity there too, because it's like, well, I'm not rooting for either of those guys.
Yeah, they're both crazy.
Yeah, but you make a superhero movie that's all about religious cults. Never done that.
hmm Oh, throw in Deacon Blackfire into that then too. I mean, don't, because I want to see him in a Matt Reeves thing, but
Well, and Azrael would also be going to old school Denny O'Neil stuff.
yeah, absolutely. And it would be around that time too, because it's like that, like maybe like 70s to like early 90s.
Yeah, Sword of Azrael is 1989.
hmm Yeah, exactly. Well, and Nightfall is obviously a big Azrael thing, and that's
Yep.
what, like 93.
Well, Sword of Azrael is just before Nightfall gets going.
Well, yeah, and I knew that too, but I was just thinking of Nightfall because that's obviously the big
Maybe it's not
Azrael
as
becomes
early as
Batman.
89. Maybe it's 1 or 2 years after that. But yes, I always think of that as part of Nightfall because I think you really need to read it.
Yeah, and I've never read it, but I probably should because you've always said that.
But no, you're right. We have to kill off Superman before Nightfall can get started because the earliest issues of that, they've all got the black bands. So it's at least, the morning bands because Superman's just died.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah,
Oh,
it's got to be
TY says I was
1993.
right. I just threw out a date. I didn't know exactly, but apparently it was 93.
Okay. No, I was conflating that with something else. Batman that I'm rusty. That he wrote that I read in '89. What was that? It's not Venom because I think Venom is even earlier than that.
Venom is because I think that's one of the early. Oh, what's that? The line, Legends of the Dark Knight. I think that's an early story in that.
Is it?
I
I didn't
think
think that was
so.
in Legends because that does start. I know for sure that book starts in 1989. Josh, $5 super chat. Daniel Radcliffe should be Plastic Man. That's good casting choice. I like that.
Yeah.
Also, I would like to see Martian Manhunter and New Gods at some point. I should have put Martian Manhunter on my list. I had that thought earlier today.
I didn't just because we already do have a DCU Martian Manhunter, but I do think we'll do, at the very least, he will be a part of the Justice League.
He'll be in the next Justice League if they make that very soon.
If they
Uh,
make another Justice League movie, I also think it'll be the classic lineup. Like I think we'll drop Cyborg and we'll get Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter.
well, especially because of all the weird stuff with Fisher. Like, they're not going to bring that actor back.
No, and that is true too. But I think even without that, I think Gunn would probably go, okay, Cyborg should probably go over to Teen Titans, and we'll have the Justice League be the Justice League.
And then New Gods almost happened. So, like, I'll be surprised if we don't get that at some point.
Yeah, I didn't even really think of the New Gods just because I was thinking more so like if we do a Justice League movie, it'll probably have Darkseid. But
What they ought to do is, okay, so either as a Justice League movie or just as an event movie that doesn't have to have Justice League in the title, you do Legends, right?
yeah,
And you have Darkseid in that, and then you use that to springboard into a New Gods movie.
that would be cool. Also, because Marvel never did it, do the Masters of Evil in a Justice League movie. Do
I
it.
always forget who
Or sorry,
that
no,
is.
Masters of Evil is Avengers.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say that's Marvel,
Legion
right?
of Doom.
Legion of
Sorry.
Doom, yeah, yeah. Well, and then
I got my wires crossed.
like Whedon tried to set that up.
Yeah, so just do the Legion of Doom because we never got Masters of Evil and Avengers.
If we're gonna do Legion of Doom, could we go? Because we're doing all this silly comic stuff anyway. Can we go as far as to have the
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
well, that too? But I was just gonna say that base, the like mobile base, the swamp base.
Yeah. Well, what I want is because the Suicide Squad has that thing where like they'll have like title cards written into the background, or just sometimes even in the like it'll just write it like where it says Suicide Squad versus Star of the Conqueror. Just above the base, have it say "Meanwhile at the Legion of Doom." They're just ridden in the clouds. Just do it.
Robert Wild. Meanwhile, the giant Darth Vader helmet. That's exactly what that is.
Oh,
We need
absolutely.
we need to do a mini marathon for Super Friends like Stat.
Oh, that's one thing I really want to do. Yeah,
We
especially
keep
because I want
talking
to
about it.
do. I want to do a Dark Side episode because his entire character in that show is just that he wants to marry Wonder Woman, and it's awesome.
There's this old, I can't remember the name of the guy that made it, but there's this old website from the early 2000s, maybe even it started in the late 90s, where there was this guy that just wrote all these really funny articles about that show. He's got one for like every character in that show.
That's awesome.
And a lot of that marathon is going to be me reading those because they're really funny.
Well, that's another thing we lost with Zaslav is the Wonder Twins movie that no one wanted.
Aw, shucks.
I know, right?
Would you believe
Rats.
they showed up in Smallville?
I think you've told me that before. That's bizarre.
They were just doing everything, and by the last couple seasons, and I think season 10 they had a Wonder Twins episode.
Wonder Twin powers activate. Form of desperation.
Okay, but is that the water one or the animal one?
Yes.
Anything else on your list before we wrap up?
So I think we've covered everything that I have under possible projects because we mentioned Secret Six, I think, earlier.
I brought it up, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. So possible characters, I'll just run these down.
Yeah.
Instead of like focusing on them.
Sure.
So I got like a mix of things that I know Gunn's talked about and stuff that I would like to see, as well as just things I think he would do. So we already talked about that. Bronze Tiger I would like to see, especially now that they killed off Flag in Suicide Squad. Vixen is a character I could see him using.
Yeah, she was
Night-
all over Legends, but that
When-
can still happen.
she's
Legends
a
of
big-
Tomorrow, not the Legends we want to happen.
Yeah. When she's part of the Justice League and then becomes a part of the Suicide Squad, so I feel like that's the type of character that he could be looking at.
Ooh, I just thought of something.
Mhm.
Static Shock.
I didn't have that, but yep, absolutely. That falls under the Teen Titans thing of brand recognition that's already built.
Yeah.
And just make it.
Well, and wasn't there?
I'm sure somebody wants to.
Yeah, well, and I thought that there was a project announced at one point that fell apart real fast, but maybe I'm wrong.
Hmm. They'll do a Black Lightning movie and annoy everyone again.
Oh God, don't do that. I mean, like, I don't care about Black Lightning. I've never
No, I
read him
know.
in anything where I cared about it. So like, maybe that could be cool.
No, I just think it's funny that people keep asking for Static Shock, and there was
They-
just that point where they
just get
kept
Black
doing
Lightning.
Black Lightning.
It's like, no, that's not the.
That's not the character people want.
It makes you. It really makes them look like they don't know the difference.
Yeah,
I don't think that's probably true, but that's kind of what it looked like.
yeah, exactly.
I saw the pilot for that show and liked it okay, but I didn't keep going with it.
Hmm. I just remember people freaking out when they brought in Raiden for Injustice 2, and then his alt skin was Black Lightning instead of Static Shock.
That show I think got 4 seasons.
I was thinking 5. I know it's up there. Crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. TY put in a $4.99 super chat. Let me read
Yeah.
this real quick. Justice League versus Legion of Doom and Teen Titans movies would be easy to set up because you can introduce the villains and sidekicks in prior films.
Absolutely. And I think there's been talks that Aqualad is supposed to be an Aquaman too. I don't know if that's actually true, or if like we have casting on that, but I've heard people talk about it.
Interesting.
So, that could be a place where we start that. I don't know.
Who else is in your might show up and stuff list?
I also have Nightshade, which would kind of suck because David Ayer ruined Enchantress. So there's like part of what's cool about her is hard to do now. But she's also a love interest for Captain Atom, so you could still do something there. And I feel like
That's
Gunn's
a whole blind spot for me, but
She's a big part of Suicide Squad, which is what I've been reading. So there's a lot of stuff influenced by that.
Sure.
I also think because she has shadow powers, and I feel like that could be something like the Yondu arrow scene, where you just have something really visually cool under Gunn.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, assuming he's the one that makes it.
assuming he's the one that makes it. But I could see her showing up in Suicide Squad because she's a big part of it. Solomon
And like, I get that you're going to a lot of Suicide Squad stuff because
part of that's just because I've been
he
reading
made
it,
that
so it's on my
movie,
mind.
and yeah, and it's on your mind. But I'd caution you a little bit because just because Gunn uh, has the keys to the kingdom now doesn't necessarily mean you'll get more Suicide Squad movies. Like, I
No,
mean, they're going to do that
absolutely.
big Waller project, but beyond that, like, I don't think that's a given.
No, for sure.
It's also
Like
not a given that it won't happen, but I'm just saying it's not a given that that's a continual, perpetual franchise.
no, well, and Nightshade is also just a superhero in her own right.
Sure.
So it's and it like I said earlier, like I had Captain Atom as a project. I could see her showing up in that and being like a big part of it.
Do you think they'll? Sorry, I'm just being silly.
No,
Do
it's
you,
okay.
do you think they'll remake Watchmen?
Yes, I hope so. I hope Gunn will direct Watchmen.
Just to go, let's pave over everything Snyder made. And I love that movie. Don't get me wrong, but
No, Gunn will specifically direct it.
I just had that thought and I had to share. Anything else on that list?
Yes. So the last few I wrote are Solomon Grundy, Killer Frost, Gorilla Grodd, and Bane, which I wrote just as a joke because every single Gunn project Bane is rumored for. So I was like, he's the Mephisto of Gunn. So I had to put
Well,
him on the list.
and I think you'll get, but I think you'll get Bane because I think they'll do Secret Six.
I do think it is probably likely, but I also think it's just funny that people keep saying, "Oh, Bane's going to be in this," and then he's not. The best one is when Peacemaker was coming out. Grace Randolph was like, "Oh, Bane's not technically in this show, but he's in the last episode with one line." And Gunn responded to her, and he was like, "Well, that would mean that he's technically in it. He's also not in it, so
Why did she say that?
I don't know."
It's very strange.
But it's really funny.
I also made a short list of events or stories that I thought might get adapted, and we've hit almost all of them already. But Identity Crisis is on that list.
Oh, okay, cool.
I just I really think that's gonna likely get adapted at some point. We talked about Kingdom Come. I name dropped Red Sun, but I think if we do any, I could see a whole Elseworlds line. And just one off. Related to the regular DCU or not movies, where I could see you sometimes using the same actors and sometimes not.
Depending on what it is, yeah.
Depending on what it is, yeah. But Red Sun's one of those. I bring this up a lot, but I like doing some version of Speeding Bullets could be really cool. But I also think, and you may roll your eyes at this, and I'm not even saying I want this.
Okay, I'm ready.
Just with what's been popular in the last few years with comics and what and what we know of Gunn's sensibilities, I kind of think Dark Knight's Metal gets made.
No, I don't know anything about Dark Knight's Metal. I figured that's where you were going because I know that's a thing that you like. I don't know anything about them, so I couldn't even roll my eyes.
No,
at you.
I'm not a big metal fan. I can't get through it.
Oh no, sorry, it's not Metal that I'm thinking of. It's Batman Who Laughs.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
Well, Batman Who Laughs is in that. I mean, that's
okay.
that's what creates that. Yeah. No, Batman Who Laughs got too popular too quickly, and I got sick of it real fast.
Absolutely.
His origin story is really good. He got a miniseries that I actually quite liked. Metal itself is just bloated, and there's too many characters, and every time I try to read it, I get distracted and I never get back to it. So it's not the same reason I've never finished Um, uh, Doomsday Clock. Um, that's a whole other ball game. I haven't finished that because it's bad. But, but Metal like has already
Stop
gotten a
messing with
sequel,
Watch.
and I haven't looked at that yet. But just it's it's all about like music and stuff. I could really see Gunn wanting to get that made. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Peacemaker is like an entire hair metal soundtrack, so that can be the metal soundtrack thing. Gunn, just make Watchmen Babies V for Vacation. Uh, just do it.
Josh, $2 super chat. How would you want them to adapt Identity Crisis? I haven't read it in a long time.
I've never read any of the
He says I'm
Crises.
not a fan of that. I can't remember how I came down on it the last time I read it, if I talked about it. But
I've heard mixed things. Some people really like it, some people hate
I
it.
used to really like it. I don't know where I'm at now. It's been too long. But it's sort of like Long Halloween. It's a mystery that if it's not great in the book, you could retool. And I mean, it's a dark story about like spousal abuse and stuff. So like it'd be really heavy. But I could see him wanting to go to that kind of thing.
Well, and Gunn likes broken characters that
Yeah.
like have that level of tragedy to them. So maybe. TY brings up Tower of Babel. I didn't think of the story thing that you did. I probably should have made a list of stories, but I think that's probably likely.
Well, see, I can't say that because we don't know if this universe has a Batman.
Uh, I don't know.
As soon as
It'll
they
be the question ahead of the series of or Waller.
look, you could adapt Tower of Babel with a different character that has that has a list of weaknesses for every Justice League character. That's not Batman, but it would piss me off. So don't do that.
Okay, so what we'll do is Black Adam breaks into Waller's base and he finds all of the plans, and he goes, "Okay, now I can kill Superman." And then he'll just kill it'll be Black Adam kills the DC universe, and that's how we reboot.
Do you think that whole thing gets shut down under
Uh,
Gunn? Do you think we're done with Dwayne Johnson already, or is that just wishful thinking?
Probably wishful thinking. I could see him sticking around, but it'll be massively retooled. Not that they had any plans to begin with, but I don't see that character even looking like the way he did in that movie moving forward.
I also could see Dwayne Johnson just not getting along with Gunn because Gunn, knows what he's talking about.
I want to see. I want like footage of the Rock meeting with James Gunn and talking about how much he loved Black Adam as a kid, and Gunn just going like, "You do know that he appeared in like 4 issues pre-Crisis, right? Like when you were a kid, he was in 4 obscure issues that you definitely did not read."
Did you mean the Atom? Is that who you thought you were talking about? Okay, we're already at
That's
two and a half
another character I
hours,
could see them doing.
and I'm starting to fade, so we're gonna have to get going. But thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for watching after the fact if you did that. Austin, appreciate all of your insights and your thoughts. I wasn't even totally sure where exactly this conversation was going to go, and we covered tons of bases.
Yeah, we went through a whole universe. Um, Also, the last thing I will leave us on
Yeah,
is that I think Gunn will reboot the entire DC universe with the Superboy punch. That'll be the first thing that happens in his movie.
that would be amazing. But then again, if he didn't have to use what they had already, why did he do that?
Because it would be really funny.
Ty, thank you for being here, man. He says this was a great stream.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, this was a lot of fun, and I have to get going, so I will see you guys next week. We should be coming back with more or less our regular schedule for next week. I'm still playing things kind of by ear. It's December. It's a weird month. I'm busy with family things and everything, so this could be a somewhat haphazard month. I don't know yet. I'm not sure if I'm doing a rewind next week or not. It's just going to depend on how my weekend goes. So I'll keep everybody apprised. But thanks for being here.
Content on the channel's getting Zaslaved this month.
It is. It's going to be all about the quality. And we only have enough money left to do 2 streams for the rest of the year.
And when we do them, they'll get no super chats.
All right, thanks again, guys. We'll see you later. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Superboy Punch.